And they can't get rid of the IS4. Adelaide Action X, they're doing it. They set the trap, and it's working to an absolute T.
They are hard shots to take, but at the end of the day, it comes down to 10 shots, focus fire, and the Wolverines just outdid them on this one.
Good damage from the Scorpions, but I don't think it's enough. I think Matildas walk away with the win from here. They've got a 4-on-3. He missed the shot! After 57 HP, and Madhouse now has a corpse to play hull down behind. This is so scary. Returned and Dell are sitting ducks. Scorpions are winning this fight. They are slowly but surely getting their way back into this game. But damage ammo rank in the E100.
Oh no!
Has been completely ignored, and another fire!
Sentinels are about to be your champions of Season 5. There they go!
Hello, welcome back. It's time for week number 4 of ANZPL 2023 Split 1. Still getting used to that name, Cthulhu, but we're back once again. Looking forward to it. Obviously, you've had 2 weeks without me. I dare say that's been an improvement.
Oh, look, I mean, it's been quite the 2 weeks, I'll tell you as much, Jordan. Look, we went from, thinking that, oh yeah, maybe, week 1 was just, a week of flukes and all of that. We went from that into week 2, which seen a number of upsets, and then week 3 seen yet another set of upsets, which just turned the whole set of standings completely upside down. And the expectations that were originally set going into this split were completely and utterly shattered, to the point where now I don't even know who will end up actually getting the top seeds going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question at this point, and to be honest, look, I've been keeping up with the results, but I do need a little bit of a refresher myself, so maybe this is a good time to take a look back at what happened last week. And yeah, look, I mean, honestly, some of these are a little bit strange to me. I think anytime you see Sentinels going down in any series is probably going to start to raise some questions. Scorpions and Action X getting the wins. I don't know if I'm, too surprised by that necessarily. I think those are fairly standard stuff. But yeah, I mean, looking at the standings overall, it's just been crazy how close this season has been.
Yeah, it's been absolutely nuts. But I mean, like, looking at the Matildas versus Action X, Matildas overall has been actually going pretty well, apart from their hiccup. Well, I say hiccup, but who knows if it was an actual hiccup. But the first 2 weeks been absolutely stellar from them. I mean, their games versus Scorpions and Sentinels were absolutely phenomenal. The other thing to mention, that the game that Matildas had against Sentinels was without Rainbow as well, so take it as how you want it. But Matilda's been really improving really well. Magic Shell's been basically the golden child for Matildas in terms of the damage output, and him being backed up by the rest of the team that has had pretty decent coordination overall has been great. But the one thing that we did find as a kryptonite for them being, oddly enough, the newest map, Runeberg, which look, it's seen actually a very interesting setup, whereas for Action X they actually went through quite a good recovery from a few of their losses, and now actually looking like a fairly scary roster. So overall, I'm going to be honest with you, I've somewhat expected even like a tiebreaker game between the two teams where I couldn't really put the finger on it, but like as to who will be able to come out the victor. But yeah, the biggest upset being the Sentinels versus Panthers was absolutely nuts. And I mean, yeah, that's being reflected on the leaderboard. I mean, Sentinels in the 5th place. When was the last time you saw this, Jordan?
Well, yeah, look, I can't recall, to be quite honest with you, but they're only in 5th place by 2 points, so it's not as if they're like all the way down the bottom of the scoreboard. In reality, they're very much still with that pack.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely, they're still there. They still absolutely can just reclaim the 1st place with basically one victory, but it's one of those sort of very rare sites where we'd so grown accustomed to see that even if Sentinels are going through a bit of a deficit in points, it's always just sort of peaking out at just 1st, 2nd place kind of deal, where in this case it was quite a bit of a head scratcher. Whereas for Wolverines, look, I think for them they'll need quite a miracle run in these next 2 play days to even get into the playoffs.
Is it even mathematically possible for them to make it?
It's kind of like we're talking
points,
about
right?
like decimal. Yeah, we're talking about decimal points at this point, and they really basically their ability to even get into the playoffs hinges on the fact that Matildas just don't score anything, and Wolverines manage to just beat their opponents for this and the next week, which I gotta say probably gonna end up being a bit of a challenge.
They would need everybody to go 2-3, so they would need Scorpions, Action X, Panthers to all lose their series, and Sentinels to win. One, lose one?
No,
I don't even know. Whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Realistically, they just need the Sentinels or Matildas to just not score at all.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. I mean, look,
And they
wishful
have the
thinking at this
opportunity.
point, I suppose. Either way, look, we should sort of move on here. We've got to touch on some of the impactful players of the season so far. I don't know that how much this is going to really have changed up after last week. You can tell me, but definitely some new faces in this top 5 compared to what we would have been used to in previous seasons.
Absolutely. I mean, no more Matildas. Well, sorry, no more usual Matildas representatives, or at this point, X as well. Representatives. Critical is no longer there. Whippet is no longer there. Magic Shells is the new overlord of that leaderboard, and it's quite curious to see that even Knight is managing to now get his name into the top 5 and into the All Stars. Rowan D and Lightning Man actually being one of the 2 most recent additions to Action X. Have actually been doing absolutely spectacularly. Rowan D as well being arguably one of the highlight players for me from the last matchup against Matildas. Definitely been showing some great promise. So yeah, overall, I've been loving this season.
Yeah, indeed. Me too. And looking forward to seeing how things are going to continue this week. Let's have a look at what matches we've got for us. You talked about how important these are all sort of shaping up to be. We've only got a couple of weeks of the regular season left. So, yeah, if you're Wolverines, it's basically do or die. They must win this series. They must win it with the 3 points. Otherwise, their chances are, well, I was going to say slim to none, but I'm pretty sure it's just none at that point if they don't win. So, North Sydney Sentinels, Action X should be an interesting one. Obviously, both teams that look pretty good on paper. And then Panthers and Scorpions, obviously, I'm quite excited about Panthers as a roster. I've said that many times, even going back to last season. But will they be able to lock down a series against the Scorpions? In my opinion, no. Based on my predictions. What do you reckon, though? We've got a little bit of a difference as far as that middle series is concerned, but in agreement for the rest.
Yeah, look, I think, well, for Matildas, it is, looking to be quite a matchup that they should be able to really win, at least even with the fact that they did suffer a loss last week. But against Wolverines, unless something goes horrendously wrong in terms of the technical issues, they should be able to come out the victor. The AX versus Sentinels, look, I think, at least personally for me, the main case here is just remembering the last splits as well. AX were the kryptonite of North Sydney Sentinels, so I'm sort of leaning into that whole storyline yet again, seeing how AX were actually doing pretty solidly overall. I reckon they might just be able to pull that off one more time. And then for the Scorpions, look, I think Scorpions are looking just pretty good. Yes, I'd say it's a bit of a 50-50, but Scorpions should be able to still take it.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to sort of see how that does end up playing on out. And I will just point out, by the way, I see through this strategy, Wargaming, okay? 6 points. I'm on 5 points. Fair enough. You're winning right now. But I predicted first this week, okay? And then old mate Willem comes in and predicts the exact same thing as me. So there's no world where I could potentially catch Wargaming. I see what's happening here. I see what's happening. Anyway, look, let's move on. We've got to talk about our first match. It's Matildas and Wolverines. So, see how this one is going to play out. I mean, look, I definitely think it's going to be a tough one for the Wolverines. They've gone through 3 weeks so far, and they have only managed to pick up 2 rounds total, Cthulhu. So, not a particularly pretty picture. You've played 3 series, a total of, potentially 12 rounds, maybe more if you got to tiebreakers, which you didn't. But 2 out of 12 rounds, it's got to be a rough feeling in that Wolverines camp at the moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely been a very bumpy road for them. One thing that I do want to mention that I am quite excited to see Saxon actually come and play for the Wolverines, seeing as him and Sir Robin do have a bit of a history in some of those mini tournaments as well, where They actually, I think, played in a team to go for the APAC League. So that was a very interesting point that, courtesy of one of our wonderful observers, Neptune, who pointed that out. But yeah, on the side of Matildas, look, it's the roster that can do quite a lot of things. Shame that Bubbles is not here, because Bubbles did, whilst not being the top performer in terms of the damage, he was one of the key players that was able to allow the closure of some of the rounds and maps in favor of Matildas. But Joatora, as well, being a very able player, should be able to pull that off.
All right, well, let's see how we're going to go as we kick things off in our first series of week number 4. Very important series if you're the Wolverines. In fact, I mean, look, it's fair to say it's an important series for every single team playing today just because of how close the standings are. But I guess you can make the argument that the Matildas are in a bit of a better spot than the Wolverines are. So, by rights, a bit more important for the Wolverines to get the win on the board here today. And hopefully they'll pull something off that they haven't been able to do so far in this split.
Certainly so, but here's something that I don't think you've actually got to witness in week 1, Jordan. It's the Mouse E100 meta that they've been striking Himmelsdorf throughout the whole split so far. It's just the sheer abundance of HP that now being introduced with the fact that the M4 54 is no longer a thing. It now opened up the floodgates for Mouse, for T57 Heavy to have a much more prevalent presence in the rounds. And look, even the 113s, albeit that's a bit of a throwback, but look, I gotta say, Himmelsdorf has been one of the largest one in terms of the health pool sizes that we got to see for a while, and a scouting E100 as well, courtesy of Whippet straight from the get-go.
Yeah, look, I think we've kind of been heading in that direction for the better part of a couple of seasons, to be honest.
That's
the
true.
more games of Himmelsdorf we've seen, the heavier the lineups have tended to trend. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you're seeing how close a lot of these rounds end up going with the timer, and a lot of the time, Himmelsdorf is that map where the defense wins just because time runs out or time becomes such a factor that the attackers have to push in, and they know they have to do such significant amounts of damage early on that, you know, they sort of let the game get away from themselves. So, I mean, it's definitely not a surprise to me to sort of see this kind of a composition coming out, and the more we see it, I will not be more surprised as we continue through. So, decent enough start there for Matildas. Good little shot onto Sir Robin from Whippet. And Wolverines, so far, not really taking a lot of map control.
Not really. I mean, the idea was a sound one to try to take the 1-2 line, but it very much hinged on the fact that there would be minimal presence and a very far away presence from Matildas. But the courtesy of Whippet establishing that very close by control, that whole plan got fairly folded. So now AVP and Flaming to rotate around. I'm assuming to maybe reinforce Saxon's position and then try to push that whole 3 line. It wouldn't be a bad idea per se, but yeah, I think sort of the rotation maybe towards Banana would be good. The 7-8 line would be a decent idea to play, but at the moment, yeah, I think Wolverine's just trying to sort of figure out where they actually have a sound position to go through, because yeah, with both Saxon and Sir Robin bleeding, it's gonna be a little bit problematic.
Yeah, can't really be affording to be bleeding HP like this. I mean, look, it's only 2 shots, so it's not the end of the world, but what have you really been able to achieve for the damage that you've taken? And I would make the argument that the answer isn't really a whole lot. Like, they haven't taken much of the map control away from Matildas here. They've taken what has essentially been given to them. So Robin cops another shot on the rotation as well. So your 113's down to about half HP, a little bit over it, but much of a muchness at this point. And only now are we starting to see some responses come through as Magic Shells and Bolognese do continue to trade.
This is actually, it only just now hit me. It's quite curious to see Magic Shells actually don the controls of the mouse rather than something a little bit more agile, a little bit more of a DPS sort of monster, given that he was the one that was put onto some of the more unusual tanks, like for example, STB1 back on Sand River. He would be the one to sort of bring out the medium tank player, the CS63 player. So something like an S-Conk would have probably been a bit more of a better choice, at least in terms of just the general trend that was going for him, or even a T57 heavy. But in this case, it's just more so a lean towards just the chunkiness.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was going to say, I think we've seen one game from him in the mouse so far this season. It looked like a fairly decent game. 3.2k damage coming through from there. And has been playing a lot of the IS-7 and the Super Conk, so it shouldn't be too far out of his comfort zone. But you're right, he's got a fairly hefty list of alternative picks as well. Either way, so far so good for the Matildas. And look, we're at about 3 minutes left on the clock, and this is where you, again, start to get a little bit worried. It's always a conversation that comes up, especially on Himmelsdorf. Time's going to be a factor here. You've got to chunk through nearly 14,500 HP, and you've got under 3 minutes to do it in, and you're also already at a HP deficit. So how does Wolverines dig themselves out of this hole? I don't know.
Yeah, they would need to basically have the RNG miracle happen to them, really. A cheeky ammo rack here and there would be great. Isolating both of the mouses would be great, but again, having Joe Torre fairly close by, plus Ravioli to come around would be great. But I believe the proxy spot might just play a very cruel joke here. No, just outside of that one. So actually, this is a perfect setup for Flag 2. AVP, though, might be in a lot of trouble approaching just mouses just like that.
All right, well, straight onto the cap. Probably not a bad approach here for the Matildas. For the Wolverines. Try to bring the Matildas to them. But with such an HP deficit, I do wonder how easy it is going to be to make this one work. Magic Shells in the mouse. Looks like he'll be the one to lead the charge to look for the reset, which means he's almost certainly going to have to go down here. 1k damage straight on into that mouse. It's starting to get a little bit tight here. Wolverines, they might have threaded the needle.
Yeah, that T-57 Heavy is just absolutely pumping out the damage, and that was absolutely huge between him and Flaming and Sir Robin. That was a great takedown as well of Magic Shells. Excellent play. Now that basically 2 1v1s would basically decide as to who could actually come out the victor. Wolverines, surprisingly, actually coming out successful out of this one.
Ravioli al dente in that Super Conk, though, still very healthy, is going to be a real problem for the Wolverines if they can't get through him, and obviously that's a bit of a mighty task. 13 seconds left here for the reset. Who's going to get it for the Matildas? No one, it looks like, and I think that might actually be Wolverines potentially swindling themselves a victory. Flaming, get around that corner, he's done it! Oh, dearie me, Matildas, what has happened there? That was not ideal at all.
That's, yeah, look, far from ideal for Matildas. The setup that was looking so agile there, unfortunately just completely fell through, which, look, that's an exciting time for Wolverines, as seeing as they managed to, well, as you highlighted, chomp through all of that, much needed barrier, force that expansion onto some of the other fights for the Matildas, and in reality, the actual release of that cap pressure didn't actually happen. So yeah, look, absolute kudos to them. They managed to, I think, finally find that at least winning formula for this round. We won't hold our breath for the rest of the game just yet, seeing as they had a few of those sparks of hope, but it's never been yet the closure.
Yeah, look, don't know what really happened there for Matildas. I mean, Magic Shells kind of got farmed a little bit in that mouse, which, you know, granted, he kind of did what he had to do, right? He had to drive forward, he had to hold W. He was the one that was kind of given the responsibility of getting that reset, but it did feel like it might have been a little bit out of whack for Matildas, right? The cohesion, I don't think, was necessarily there, right? Magic Shells was pushing forward, but the two tanks behind him were kind of still not quite committing, and so he goes down. The T-57 Heavy kind of has that time to reset, and by the time Matildas actually then really do start to commit forward, T-57 Heavy has fully reloaded, and so Magic Shells kind of gives up his life for nothing, and then the next guy through gets farmed as well, which obviously, as we saw, became a bit of a problem for Matildas. They were still brawling okay, like in terms of that HP deficit. I think there was still a world where they could have actually come away with the advantage, or even just survive for another minute, which is really all that was on the clock. But the fact that they couldn't get the reset was a little bit surprising to me, because it looked like it was all pretty much wrapped up neatly for the Matildas, and not the case, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It certainly is quite a big talking point that, quite a lot of mistakes seem to have actually gone completely unwatched, and certainly that introduced a lot more problems than Matildas would have probably wanted. By the by the end of it all. So yeah, look, I not too particularly sure what really happened in terms of their coordination, because setup looked sound and they had a really good advantage in the beginning, but yeah, losing that mouse basically scot-free meant that is just free real estate for the taking, and not enough pressure from Matildas meant just problems galore. So look, maybe on the attack they might be able to pull it off, but there's been already signs of that for Matildas, of that sort of fall apart before. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is just the sort of the continuation of just the problems that they've been facing for the whole last week.
Guess we'll see. With that said, it is a 50-50 map, right? So you can definitely expect to see some wins on the attack. You can expect to see some wins on the defense, at least based on the stats that we have for this season so far. So I don't think it's the end of the world necessarily for Matildas. They will want to look at this and go, all right, well, we probably should be getting at least a 1-1 on Himmelsdorf so that we can still kind of close this series out without giving up any points to the Wolverines, which is quite important in my opinion, right? Outside of Wolverines, actually Matildas is in a pretty precarious spot, given that they haven't got the 6 points that a few other teams have already managed to get on that scoreboard. And if you now give up points to Wolverines, which no one else has suffered so far this season, that's a massive net negative, even if you were to still go on to win this series and, for example, get 2 points out of it.
Yeah, could mean just plethora of problems, and even just in terms of even maybe the round differentials, if it does come down to some of the tiebreakers and everything, this would be quite a problem and a half. But hey, look, I mean, on to another round. This time, actually a 50B to come out from Matildas, which still feels like quite an interesting pick when you pair it against, or rather pick it against the two T57 heavies. So Wolverines might actually still have a pretty solid idea as to how they want to do it, because the burst damage from those two tanks can be absolutely nutty.
I always love watching the double autoloader setup. I think it's just, it's so satisfying when it goes well. So Toddy and AVP, will see what they're going to be able to get done, but I mean, let's just entertain a world, for example, where Whippet rolls around the wrong corner. He's going to get blown up in, under 5 seconds. For now, he's just chilling, doing a bit of scouting. The rest of the Matildas working their way forward. But, dude, you have 2 T57 heavies set up on this angle.
Yep.
So, if they can find their timing as maybe, 3 of these tanks go around the corner. Like, let's say, for example, they peak while Joatora is still, lagging behind. Or maybe when Whippet decides to roll down the hill. Do they get proxy lit here?
I
don't think they do.
Might just be out of the proxy spot just ever so slightly. If they stick to a slightly wider position on the road, they definitely won't get lit up. But yeah, this setup from Wolverines is actually kind of scary, because even with those T57 heavies going down later down the line, they will still be able to deal so much damage.
Well, here's where we're going to get to find out if they get proxy lit or not. They've moved over to the far side of the road as well. I don't think they've been lit. And so what that'll mean is, at some point, either Whippet's going to come down off the hill and he's going to get booked by 2 T57 heavies, or the T57 heavies are going to get in behind this massive pack of Matilda's tanks, and they'll just be able to farm.
Ravioli, very quick turn off as well.
They've been spotted now.
Realizing just the danger. Yeah, they've been spotted now. For Whippet, this means he needs to get out. And all of a sudden, Matilda's had to take a bit of a detour there. For Ravioli, this will still mean that he will probably cop a shot, if not 2. Oh, no, never mind, but maybe some of them.
I think maybe Wolverines could have bided their time a little bit more there and actually really waited for Matildas to fully commit to the cap and done something from that. But now they've kind of forced Matildas on a bit of a reroute, and that's not going to be very fun for Soltarian, who is now isolated in that IS-4, and he's just getting farmed. This is not fair. This is a 1-on-4.
Yeah, 1-on-4, but this should still generate just about enough time for the T57s to come around, the IS-4s, Sir Robin and the S-Conk. Yes, it'll still be a tank deficit, but I mean, look at the sheer amount of the heat rounds that can now be just dumped for literally free of charge. And this is the perfect opportunity. Unfortunately, well, it was also the perfect opportunity to farm up those T57 heavies, because they do not have any armor whatsoever.
Yeah, and now Whippet's coming into the perfect little pillbox to catch the T57s, who are on reload and already suffering a bit of a HP loss. This should be free as you like for Whippet to get a few shots on in there, and so he's done a good job already. So Robin in that super conk has also been isolated, and this is just your perfect Wolfpack mentality from Matildas, roaming around the map as 5, or in this case, I guess really as 4. Whippet doing what he wants to do as the lone wolf, but they're isolating tanks, and Wolverines aren't really doing anything about it.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, they couldn't really do per se much about this as well. Things been really rough for them. They tried to play catch up with the Matildas, but really it just wasn't enough. And the setup that had ideal sort of scenario for it to work out, unfortunately, just I think they didn't expect for the Matildas to get as fluid and as quick on the decision making as they thought things would go.
Well, that'll be that. That was a very one-sided second round of Himmelsdorf.
I think I'll just quickly take a sidetrack here, Jordan. I think Ravioli is preparing to rip another T-shirt. He already had
he was doing a bit of a flex.
Because he got a mad flex back on week 2 when you were away, when they managed to beat Sentinels, right. And he full on managed to cop a bit of a shirt rip, and got to celebrating fairly early. Yeah,
bit of a recurring trend in ANZPL now, it seems like. Someone's gonna have to come up with a new celebration. We see some crazy stuff in other games. I've seen the shirt rip before. But like some people have even put like neon lights in their room and they just like flick them on and off and stuff like that. So
true.
Set up your own rave party. Either way, one apiece. Nice little response from Matildas. Gets back into the swing of things. Oof. And there's Magic Shells right back up the top of the fantasy stats again.
Curious to see that it's him up on the top of the damage with an IS-4, whereas Whippet is at the bottom of the leaderboard with the autoloader, which I mean, generally speaking, given enough time, the 50B would be able to still outclass the just single loaders. But look, for Matildas, this was a perfect response. I think they in the first round may have just gotten caught off guard with some of the plays, and just the initial bleed on the Mouses ended up being that sort of kryptonite for them in the first round. But for this one, perfect, adjustment, perfect move off, and they've done pretty well. On top of the fact that, as well, gotta say, I did see a few of the shots from the T-57s bounce as well, which didn't help the scenario either there.
Yeah, for sure. But I think at that point already, Wolverines were in a bit of a pickle.
And the
Matildas, they did exactly what they needed to do. It's not too surprising to see Whippet really not getting much done in that 50B, because it really did feel like that round was very much dictated by the heavy pack. The IS-4s and the E100s were really just the driving force behind the Matildas' victory there, and Whippet was kind of in there for a bit of cleanup, but whatever. All he really did was drive around. He's got 2K, 2,000 mileage, so
true.
Just had a good time. Taking the Safi route. Don't know if you... remember that, or even if you're aware of that back in the day, the WGL, we used to track the distance traveled. Safi was always at the top. Didn't really do anything apart from drive around the map.
Hey, gotta soak in the views, I suppose, at least somehow. But look, I'm all for the Safi route. Honestly, it definitely has a nice sort of ring to it. But I mean, I think without Whippet being as sort of mobile as he was, things would have looked quite bleak there, because if not for the extra flank, if not for the extra pressure, things could have been a whole lot more free-floating for Wolverines to really take control of.
Maybe they would have had a little bit more space to work with, but at the end of the day, very one-sided victory for Matildas there. So we're back to one apiece. Wolverines, I don't think they can walk away from that too disappointed. It is obviously the map pick of Matildas, so there's that to sort of think about. Prokhorovka coming up next. We'll have to wait and see how that ends up sort of playing out, but I think if you're Wolverines here, I mean, even if you get a point in this series, you kind of got to be happy just because of how difficult the season has been so far, but obviously they need a little bit more than that. They could pretty much seal the deal with a 2-0 here on Prokhorovka, but is that going to be an easy task? I don't think so.
Yeah, look, Prokhorovka has been very much of an interesting venture. We've seen quite a fair few times the teams committing to the hill play more so than the usual sort of mid-ridge line. We've seen quite a fair few of the village battles as well. So look, I mean, Wolverines have still all the tools to really do it. The Centurions as well. This is something that actually I want to say has been actually originally pioneered by, at least within this split, we're talking by Wolverines. At least at the start of the season, they were the ones bringing out some of the more unusual strats. Even we got to see the BZ as well to be introduced at that later down the line. Was actually, funnily enough, in the week 2 was adapted by the Sentinels even as well. But yeah, the Caxes, especially after the recent buff, has actually become quite the DPS monster.
Okay, fair enough. I'm convinced. You know, I've always been a fan, or like a low-key fan of that tank, so happy to see it getting a bit of airtime. Double IS7, double Super Conk, very standard stuff from Matildas. 277 as well to round it out. I mean, for the most part, it's generally pretty standard here.
Yeah.
Wolverines taking control of the hill early on in the piece. Matildas responding by taking mid-ridge out toward the western side of the train tracks.
Yeah, it's been so far fairly solid start, I gotta say. Though the Centurion Action X will need to be that sort of the spearhead play, which I think Whippet might just be able to figure out fairly soon, although I don't think there's enough of the spotting range to actually spot either Toddy or Mudguard, so this is going to be a fairly safe cross. So all in all, this has been actually a pretty good take by Wolverine. So if they apply some pressure straight away onto Whippet, this could be good for Saxon and Soltarian to actually push through, or at least start applying a little bit more pressure, because that should force either Ravioli or maybe Magic Shells or maybe even Bolognese to start rotating towards Whippet to reinforce that position. And from there on, things could get rather rowdy. Unfortunately, though, for Centurion Action X, for AVP, this might be a fairly quick game.
I think you've been baited there by the Centurion Action X. That used to happen all the time when we were talking about Adelaide Action X. We just used to call them Centurion Action X. But anyway, AVP, yeah, getting farmed up a little bit. Mudguard as well. This is the same issue that we saw from Wolverines at the start of the first round of Himmelsdorf, where they were just bleeding a lot of HP before the fight really ensued, and that obviously puts Matildas in a really good spot. Matilda's feeling pretty confident about this. They've decided again, in true Matilda's fashion, to just drive forward as 5 and take the fight to Wolverines, try to isolate a couple of tanks, and it looks like they'll be able to do a good job of that. Sure, some shots are coming in from the hill, but the focus fire is just not good enough from the Wolverines right now. You've got damage onto Spencer, onto Ball, onto Magic Shells. Ravioli Al Dente is still alive, but he's on 800 HP, and if those extra shots were able to go into that Super Conk, then at least, maybe, you might be able to trade down effectively. They have at least brought it back to the 4-on-4. Saxon surviving. Magic Shells copping shots in the back from the Centurion Action X on the hill, but it ends up being a 2-for-1 trade.
Yeah, 2-for-1 trade is not particularly ideal here, though Bolognese, that cross would have been quite costly for him. Minus 550 is going to be a rather nasty roll for him. Though, continuing that whole roll, yeah, this is great.
AVP really needs to connect here onto Magic Shells. If he doesn't, I mean, again, another missed shot. Magic Shells, he's still a gun in the game, even if that's not required at this point, I think, from the Wolverines. Bolognese is getting pretty low. Starting to get a little bit tight for Matildas here. You got 2 tanks down to a 1-shot, which, unfortunately, apparently, don't want to die. Like, Bowl somehow, on 360 HP, he's bounced a shot from behind. AVP's just missed another one in the in the Centurion Action X. And Toddy bounced one off the front of the IS-7 as well. So, somehow Bowl's still alive for so long, I don't know.
Yeah, not the most ideal situation. But yeah, the Cax, look, unfortunately, didn't really have a whole lot of luck connecting on a bunch of those shots. Whippet still being full HP should be able to mop it all up pretty well, all things considered, unless Matildas just go through a maddening just choke there and there. With Magic Shells gone, that's now needs to be a very clean, quick wrap-up, and Toddy needs to go right here, right now. Otherwise, AVP might actually just be able to clean up the act, but finally does Toddy go.
Well, Spencer should just be able to play hell down behind these tanks and make it pretty difficult for AVP to connect a killing blow. AVP's got 3 minutes to work with. And 4.2k damage done. He's done a lot of damage. But Matildas obviously were able to isolate just enough that they were able to trade down effectively. And obviously on the defense, Whippet's just going to drive away. Doesn't need to do anything apart from leave. Sure, Spencer will die, probably. But if he gets one more shot into AVP, even if he doesn't, it's pretty clutchable for Whippet in the 1v1.
So there's the spot onto Whippet. Funnily enough, before even Spencer gets spotted. That should still be a nice finishing shot. Yeah, perfect aim. Surely, yeah, the shot does land. Yeah, that's a perfect trade. That ensures basically that Whippet, even in the trade game, will be able to just outplay AVP here.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where AVP can really win this one. Honestly.
I mean, a magic ammo rack, maybe.
Sure. Well, like, what are your options, really? You can't cap because you're solo. If you drive at him, Whippet's going to be able to play hull down, take the fights as he wants to. So, almost looks like AVP's just given up, which is fair enough. Okay.
You know, I mean, look, he's still able to bleed.
I'm not too sure why Whippet's making that cross. Do you need to make that cross?
Highly unnecessary, honestly. And gave that extra bit of damage to AVP and missing a shot. That's a second shot. Whippet, what are you doing, buddy?
Like, you can't lose this 1v1 if you're Whippet. That would be very embarrassing. There's a 1-for-0 trade in the favor of Whippet. It does look like he's going to get it over the line, but that's a little bit closer than you would like to see it being. If he bounces a shell here or misses a shell, AVP might just have the DPM to get it over the line, but Whippet secures it. Breathe a sigh of relief. That was a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, you could see a bit of a stressful look from Bolognese and Spencer, probably the most. Just seeing the concern on their faces, but look, yeah, Whippet could have quite easily could have sat there on the ridgeline and would have been able to just absolutely farm up free of charge.
I don't know why he wanted to make that cross. Like, did he think he? I don't know. Like, the thing is, like, I'm trying to think about it. I'm trying to think, like, why would he want to go down there? And I'm like, he must have just like assumed that AVP was like guaranteed to be pushing on that side of the map. Otherwise, because like if you give up the ridge, then he can push on the west side of the ridge and potentially, I don't know, whatever. Probably reading into it a little bit too much. We'll have to talk to Whippet about it after the game if we do get an interview with him. But very interesting, very interesting. Either way, 2-1 the scoreline here for the Matildas. It ended up being a little bit closer than it did look like it would be initially, because Matildas found a pretty nice timing to kind of wolfpack their way forward and cut off a couple of tanks, isolate a couple of tanks. But at the end of the day, Wolverines just not quite having enough to get that over the line.
Yeah, it's been definitely a bit of a tough one. I mean, you still look at AVP's 6k damage farmed up, but basically at the expense of the rest of the team. And so the Cax, you can theoretically say that it worked. I mean, if you're a fantasy enjoyer, that would be a really nice boost of points as well. Almost 120 points there. Yeah, I think the fact that Wolverines ended up spreading themselves a little bit too thin, knowing that Matildas are one of those teams that just enjoys just full sending in a wolf pack, it felt like a bit of a sort of a misread there. Whereas you look at the Matildas, it's all a fairly even spread for the most of it, minus a Ravioli. But even then, it was still a very good, cohesive sort of push by them.
I mean, it is a little bit telling, though, when you look at the accuracy and pen rates here for Wolverines, right? Like, if they would have, for example, for Saxon, let's say, I mean, I don't want to call any individual out. I think all these guys could have, like, probably penned a few more shots than they did. But if Saxon gets another 1 or 2 shots through, if Soltarian gets another 1 or 2 shots through, you know, then what a difference that could have made, right? You're in Super Conks. You've done 727 damage and 1,600. Probably need to be seeing bigger numbers than that if they want to get a win. And as you said, AVP, he tried his best, but there just wasn't really enough done by the rest of the guys. And if you've got sub 70% pen rates for everyone on your team, you think if everyone was up to 75%, we would have won that round.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if a few more shots would have connected, that would have been it. That would have been the round for Wolverines to really take. They would have been able to really just outdo their opponents, because that Cax would have been the big linchpin in a number of
and
those
also
peaks,
by the way,
that would have,
like if AVP's able to finish off the IS-7 a little bit quicker there as well, maybe he can get 1 or 2 more shots onto Whippet and make it doable. I mean, Toddy also bounced the shell off of Bowl from the front, to be fair, but I think it took a little bit too long for Bolt to go down as well. So there's a lot of little, like, tiny 1%ers that Wolverines could have done better there, and they would have won that round. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
They didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, they didn't at the end. So, look, I mean, they still get one more chance to really pull that off, to really bring it back, and it will be on the defense side. So, arguably, somewhat easier of a job where they have to just hold the line. For Matildas, though, this is the perfect time for them to really get even more aggressive. I mean, the 1-2 lines can still be explored. I mean, with the IS-7 meta being at all-time high once again, this would be the perfect opportunity for them to just employ the 277s, the IS-7s, to just full send it. Whereas for Wolverines, they need to really do some work here to actually make the play happen, and instead we get a Stridsvan.
Yeah. Well, definitely seems like a Whippet kind of tank.
That's true.
Likes to farm the damage numbers.
That is a very accurate point.
Definitely a map that is winnable on the attack, though. I've seen the 50-50 from Pokrovka so far this season. This is a pretty cool graphic. I like this one. Haven't seen this before. Shout outs to the prod team. Doing a good job.
Well, it's good to see that the sort of the faces of the players as well, and at the beginning and even at the end as well of the matches, to sort of get a bit more of a feel for how things are all looking. All very much focused, but it is quite curious to see that we get this sort of a very sort of left and right split of the map control. So for Wolverines on the defense, it's all in on the second flag. For Matildas, it's all in on the one flag. And now that the Stridsvan is also approaching, there should be just about enough of the coverage for Bolognese to just keep up that cap pressure for basically free of charge.
Well, Whippet is doing what Whippet does.
Farming.
Baiting his entire team for damage. There, I said it. I said it.
There you go.
Everybody knows.
Did I feel good?
Yeah,
that felt better?
It
Okay,
did.
good.
I love low-key talking shit sometimes. Everyone knows back in the day used to be my specialty. I've been quite nice, actually, I think, in ANZPL.
They didn't get the full Jordan treatment.
They haven't got the full experience. Oh, man, you go back and listen to how I used to cast Madhouse. Man,
Oh.
everybody knew that guy was a redliner back in the day.
Well, now he's known to be a backflipper, so I mean,
Well, no shortage of those back in
suppose-
the day, too.
yeah, oof. Look, I mean, in the meantime, we do get a very interesting sort of ramp up by the Wolverines to actually just try to pull the Matildas and actually just push over and try to just farm the damage that way. But with the Stridsvan being the Stridsvan, it's going to be
Okay.
problematic at best. And that is the
So-
ammo wreck as well.
From one 6k damage game to potentially a 0 damage game there for AVP.
yeah.
It seems like the fortunes of the Wolverines are not looking too hot to close this series out with at least a tiebreaker. Matilda's very much in control of the round now.
Yeah, now without the Cax, Mudguard is going to be having a lot of problems to deal with this cap pressure. For Spencer and Bolognese, this is perfect. This is as ideal of a scenario as one can get. Oh, perfect shot as well, banked by Whippet. Continuing the baiting game, obviously, but... Oh, no, wait,
Good shot.
that's a second one lands as well. Jesus. The RNG on that guy is just absolutely nutty.
No, it's not RNG, mate. That's skill.
Oh, yeah, true. My bad.
You miss every shot you don't take. And a bad player wouldn't have taken that shot because they would have said, nah, the RNG's not going to hit it. Well, there you go. Whippet goated.
Oh, exactly.
Whippet's the
Goated
STRV
on
god.
six.
Mudguard doing a pretty decent job of actually kind of peppering away at these guys on the cap without taking any damage, but as soon as Ravioli Al Dente gets in position, then Mudguard's in trouble.
Yeah. Well, Soltarian is all starting to take quite a fair bit of damage. It's going to get a whole lot more problematic. Whippet needs to be sort of very much still engaged, but needs to be staying uncovered because that 1800 HP is going to be chewed through very rapidly as soon as he starts exposing even just small bits of his armor. With Saxon, though, gone, now it's a 2-tank advantage, and yeah, that's the high time for just complete overpush and overmatch.
Well, yeah, I think we all know which way this one is going to end up going. It's just a question of really who's going to farm up all of that damage. Magic Shells at the back of the map in the Super Conk. Whippet in the STRV. Both of them having a pretty good game, I dare say. And so it's just down to Toddy and Soltarian. And once again, Wolverines they will not be able to win themselves a series. And what this means is that they are out of contention for the playoffs now. It's 3 rounds won in 4 weeks for Wolverines. So they're really going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, very rough turnout really there for Wolverines. Got a feel for them really, with their only recent promotion to PL from BL. Obviously, the environment would be changing continuously, and yeah, look, problems galore meant that just difficult to really find that readjustment. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's the ravioli.
Don't rip it. Don't rip it.
No, don't.
Looks like a good singlet.
Yeah. It did look like actually quite a high quality singlet.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes you get. I don't really wear singlets, to be honest. I got skinny noodle arms, so I don't really like to show them off too much. But sometimes when you slip into a nice singlet, I mean, that feels really. Do you ever wear singlets? They feel pretty nice sometimes.
I mean, I have just a couple of them, but yeah, look, they can get quite comfortable once you find the sort of the right one. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, look, pretty comfortable win actually at the end of the day there for Matildas. I thought, bit of a weird first round. Probably should have won that as well. Could have just as easily been a 4-0 in my opinion. But the Wolverines, again, tough day at the office for them. And I think they're probably more than happy to kind of see the end of this season next week.
Yeah, I think for them, at this point, sort of reassess certain things and just take it at face value, completely rework some of these strats, maybe just spend a little bit more time with some of the scrims and sort of get readjusted for the next split, really. Because, look, things definitely just been really, really rough for them. They could still play a bit of spoiler, but even then, that seems like a bit of a sort of a question mark, really, going over some of those... some of the games. But look, for Matildas, just yet another 3 points that they managed to get themselves, and very much of a well-played turnout.
Yep, very good stuff indeed. 100 fantasy points from Whippet. You'll be happy if he's on your fantasy team. Magic Shells has had another pretty good week, with the exception of that first game. I think he's done pretty well for himself, so should be able to stay up in that top 5, if not even the top 1 position. And not a bad across-the-board performance from the Matildas.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, for Matildas, this is a really nice, solid sort of turnout. Really, they managed to really keep their composure. They still managed to keep everyone in the play, and that has been actually a really cool thing as well, worth mentioning for Matildas, that they haven't been really locked to just that one set of 5 players that they would just play out and only bring out the remaining 2 if certain availabilities change. They always keep on cycling them, so it's a very well functioning 7-man roster that I've been genuinely enjoying watching from Matildas. That and with some of the players, you have been obviously getting completely different setups as well. So with Bubbles, you would obviously be always guaranteed as the person that would still be able to be part of all of the fights, but he would also be able to handle situations on his own as well. A big highlight being I think it was the Sand River against the Sentinels, if my memory serves me right. That was just chef's kiss, honestly, from them.
All right, well, all things considered, Wolverines, all they can really do for the rest of the season now pretty much is play spoiler, so I guess we'll have to wait and see what they can do next week. Have a look at who they're playing against.
I think
it's Action X next week. Yeah, so maybe they can still play spoiler against Action X, but I guess a lot of that will also depend on how Action X's game goes today. From what I've seen, though, I don't think Wolverines are really looking particularly threatening. And this is like a little bit more what I expected to see from the teams coming up from B-League. Like last season, we obviously had the Comets come up, and they actually looked pretty competitive. But I was talking about at the start of the season, I was like, yeah, look, these guys are going to get wrecked. And that's kind of what this is kind of what I expected. I thought that this is a bit more representative of players coming into a new level. At least in this case, this was a bit more of a new team, so I guess there's that on top of it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an awakening, right? You have to come into ANZPL and learn a lot, because a lot of these players have been around the block, and they're a little bit better than you are. So it's not it's not to sort of bash on Wolverines or anything like that, but obviously they have a bit of work to do if they want to come back next season. And, you know, some of these players probably do take this as a pretty big learning experience, and those will be the ones that are able to improve and move on and get better. But, yeah, tough season.
Yeah, definitely a tough season. Yeah, look, I think for me with Wolverines, I was kind of expecting them to perform even just, well, at the level of Comets, despite the fact that, yeah, with Comets, they did have some of the previous competitive experience in the PL or similar sort of level. Whereas for Wolverines, most of those players were part of B League. Yes, you do have Saxon and AVP, who are quote unquote the veterans of the scene. But even then, things just didn't seem to pan out as well as they did, despite the fact that they also had the whole buff, you know, being that they all played in the same clan during the clan wars. So one would expect that they would have all the coordination, all the cohesion coming into PL. But unfortunately, I mean, jumping from a 15 versus 15 to a 5 versus 5 did sort of seem to have quite the big impact there.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I don't know, like, I've obviously not had a lot of experience when it comes to transitioning between 15v15 and 5v5 or 7v7 or whatever. But, you know, when I, for example, played a few games of 5v5, I was just so lost. I think it's like one of those, to me, you look at it on paper and you're like, oh, this should be pretty straightforward, like you'll know what to do. But it does feel like a pretty big transition. It does feel like a pretty big jump to me. And it takes a little while to kind of get used to. So I don't know what it's like for those guys. And maybe you can even speak to that yourself. I think you've been playing a little bit more than I have recently. But I don't think it's as easy to say like, oh yeah, they play in the same clan and they play clan wars together, therefore they should be a good 5v5 team. I find the 5v5 format can be quite punishing if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I wasn't saying that it was sort of, you know, the God squad. By all means, I was still expecting, you know, the regulars of ANZPL to still come out the victors. But, I mean, at least sort of 1 to 2 maps to be won would have been great to see from them. But seeing as how the rest of the team managed to, or rather the rest of the teams managed to really elevate their performances going into this split, it was already quite a tough job really for them to partake. So overall, look, I mean, yeah, I kind of want to say that there was a slight disappointment in terms of Wolverines and their overall turnout. But to a certain degree, it is sort of a valid point to make that, yeah, look, first season within PL definitely feels like a bit of a sort of a rough one. And then, well, after the drawing board, they should be able to come back fairly well.
All right, well, we've got Ravioli Al Dente ready for the interview, so welcome, mate. No shirts ripped today. That's a good start for you, I think. Congrats on the win. How's the team feeling at the moment? Obviously, you've still got a bit of work to do next week.
Yeah, no, like, great game. Well played by Wolverines. They played, honestly, really well. I think the biggest surprise was, honestly, seeing them 57 heavies behind us on Himmelsdorf. So
actually, speaking of those 57 heavies, what was the it was your quick reaction that managed to actually get you out of those shots, but how much of a surprise was that duo?
Yeah, Cthulhu, like I mean, like I was with it, like he was like, what the hell? And I think he predicted it. I think he predicted a little bit, but it was like unexpected and it could have ended pretty badly, to be honest.
Yeah, look,
but, yeah.
I wanted to sort of talk to you about, you played in Season 1, right? Didn't you?
Correct. In the Comets with Speed and
So I just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on like how things have changed, because if I remember rightly, you only played Season 1 and then you only just come back. So have you kind of noticed anything different? Do you think like the level of play is higher? Is it a bit more difficult now, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, the level of play is definitely higher. There's definitely obviously majority of the teams besides us and Wolverines, they've been playing together for a while and the gel is already there. The reactions could be quicker. You know, these guys have actually platooned with each other for a while. They've been playing with each other for a while. They know what's good.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps us up. Ravioli, thank you for the chat, and obviously we'll hope to chat with you again next week if you get the win, which I dare say you're looking forward to.
Yep, yeah.
All right, thanks, mate. Yeah, Cthulhu, good to hear from the horse's mouth, and yeah, it's kind of good to see as well. Like Ravioli, I do sort of have fond memories of Season 1. I don't know, I get a bit whimsical. I think I'm getting old, right? Like I'm just like, oh man, Season 1, those were the golden days. Like WGL, those were the golden days. You know what I mean? So like someone coming back after only playing in Season 1, I kind of like that. I respect. But yeah, overall, obviously we did sort of mention Matildas. they still, I think, have to do a little bit more work, right? They came into this week a step below most of the teams. They were on 5 points. That's right. They were on 5 points coming into this week. Scorpions, Action X, and Panthers all on 6, and obviously Sentinels are on 4. So they're at least a little bit above the Sentinels, but just to make sure that they're sort of feeling okay, and obviously at this point, I think the argument is we're probably playing for seeding, considering Wolverines are not making it into playoffs anymore. Matilda's still going to have to do a little bit of work next week just to make sure they can get as high up in the playoffs as they possibly can. But anyway, that's a discussion that we can have in a little bit, because we've got to go to a break. We've got another 2 series to get to, so don't go too far away, guys. Get yourself some food, get yourself a snack, do what you need to do. Come back. We'll have another match for you ready to go.
Kill the CS. Yes. You gotta push
Push here and shoot speed.
I go in and kill. I go in and kill speed.
Wait, they're gonna bring the super dog and CS in, Ball.
Yes, I know. Ravioli,
pushing to you with it.
Yes,
you need to come in.
You need to come in.
Yeah, I'm already moving.
He's on fire.
He's dead. Relax.
What do you want me? I'm moving in.
Yes. Watch out for CS.
You guys are fine. Just focus Cindy.
Yes. Just focus.
Finish.
Beautiful. Nice.
Okay, I'm clipping. Supercom's looking at me, guys.
Ravioli, you just stay there and farm. Okay, there he is.
I'm pushing to you.
Oh,
Yes.
It's shooting me. CS is shooting me.
Yes, it's fine. I cover.
W.
I'm coming to you, Ball.
Yes, I push him back. You put one in.
I got kill shot, Ball. Nice.
I give up.
Good job, guys. Well done.
Into the mouth. Nice.
Ravioli, come in, please.
1100.
Focus 1100. 700.
700.
Just
Drive in. Yep. You two finish quickly.
Finish.
He bounced. Magic, you need help. Go proc attack.
Right, hey, we fucking beat Sentinels, boys. This is saying, right?
We're beating Scorps 10 cents. I haven't just beaten one, and that was with Rainbow.
And honestly, we should have won at least proc, right? It's fine, go for the first cone. Yeah, 1800. They just give for this, just farm. And then come down, Wimo, come down.
Wimo just needs to dump
Go for the scone, Scone. One more shot on the scone, nice.
And then come into here to get away from the STRV.
Yes. Drive left, away from this rib. Don't let him run. Don't let him go over the tracks. Put one into there.
How much damage are you at?
Oh, Wimo, you troll. You fucking rammed him and I missed my shot, you geezer.
Yeah, geezer. Let me get damage. I need fantasy. No!
Russian. You two are both fucking each other.
Can you kill?
No, not permit.
Ain't she?
Nice.
Yeah, we almost fumbled that so fucking hard, boys.
Please talk to each other.
Yeah, okay.
That was bad.
Oh, dude, I f***ed up. Guys, are you gonna win that?
I'm
probably.
coming in. I've got full health. I'm coming in. I'll kill lightning.
Just get in.
Oh, get
I can kill lightning. I'll kill.
Watch out for your
Dude, classic Knight, dude. Not just listening to calls, man. Just.
Now we have a huge HP advantage. It looks like we really won this easily.
Yep.
Trax is coming for me.
Just pen every fucking shot at me. Come on, man. Holy shit.
I'm gonna put
The best player in the game, dude. It doesn't matter. You have to just try. High roll for the win.
Drop an aim.
Just aim it. You're only gonna get one shot.
Oh my god! Let's go!
Oh my god, dude! Jesus Christ.
Let's go!
Dude, we are so f***ing bad. Holy.
Oh my god, that's so funny, dude.
It's so bad.
Dude, we are so f***ing bad.
Into it already.
looking to find some action. Ghost Town always proves to be interesting. And all of a sudden, the deep T57's holding off the cross. Matilda's not going to be able to find that angle onto Rio Indy. Never mind, they're going to commit to the full-on brawl, Cthulhu. They're pushing in through mid.
So this is a perfect opportunity to isolate, get rid of Ro Indeed, and he's one shot away. CJ needs to either clear him, be able to body block some of the shots, but instead Rowandy is looking to become the hold down position for CJ, and that is actually going to be perfect.
Yeah, but CJ is not much longer for the world, but there you go. Action X do find that follow-up kill, the second so far. Magic and Joatora out. Now we're down to the 3 versus 3. The health pool favouring Action X at the moment. The shot's coming through. Whippet's in trouble.
They might be able to, but Lightning Man is approaching very rapidly. Dongalord is clipping out once again, so that is going to be quite a chunky amount of HP. There's a finisher on Bolognese as well, so Ravioli unfortunately not for long in this place as well.
I don't think it's likely they're going to get the time that they're looking for to try and make a play here. And oh, Bolognese, that's a building, buddy. Need to go a little bit wide. He's going to swing around. He's going to spot big information there. Going to line up some big shots, but takes just as much punishment on his own. Where's Whippet? Cthulhu finds the first kill of the round. Wow, Whippet's going to find a real power position here. They have no idea that he's flanked in from the back. Trax is dead. CJ's in trouble. They just pump it away. It is a 3 versus 3 effectively, but you look at the overall health pools and the Matildas are coming out on top. Whippet trying to thread the needle. Wow, that was a huge shot.
Sure, Action X still very much in the game here. Bolognese needs to make sure that he nails the shot here. Does in fact, and a low roll from Lightning Man will be unfortunately his demise.
They need to get the shots in, but Whippet's going to wrap all the way around. Ruindy has to play a very careful game. This is getting eerily similar to that matchup we saw to end the playday last week. Cthulhu Raspberry on the run, but Ruindy's not finding the same success. He just tucks himself around the corner. Has the mobility still. All shots going back. Whippet's forced onto the reload with 2 minutes remaining.
In comes the swing, and yeah, Rowandy, look, unless something absolutely horribly goes wrong and the APCRs keep on bouncing, things will get rather problematic. One more shot is what is needed, but Whippet unable to find the green spot to hit. That's the second shot. 2 more left, and there it is. There's the finisher from Bolognese.
So we're seeing a decent rotation of this roster. There you go. They're looking to commit over towards this 2-flag position. They want to get up in the face of CJ, find some action, but the shot's only just starting to connect. Bolognese in a bit of trouble here with Joe supporting him. I don't think this is quite how the Matildas want this fight to be going.
Playing off the fact that Matildas gave away so much free real estate.
They backed themselves into a corner. In fact, Ruindy was able to freely come in from the back and go for that pinch. I mean, they just pushed themselves into the choke point here. There was nowhere to go. Whippet, he's off in the wings. Yeah, this was just an awful situation the Matildas forced themselves into. Another rotation. Spencer out, Ravioli back in. A lot of changes for the side of the Matildas, but Action X going for a bit of a change of their own. The double VZ55 lineup coming in, and wow, they need to all swing onto him right now. Cthulhu, they're going to do the damage, but there we go, finally finished off. Magic claims more fantasy points for himself, much needed up that last round. And it's a 5 versus 3, make that a 4 versus 3 somehow, and it's ring around the rosy. We saw this out of the Scorpions last week. They're just biding time so that Whippet can get in and get some damage out. 3 versus 3, this is looking bleaker and bleaker, but the health pool gap is closing. Bolognese, he's facing up, looking to try and find the shots. Ruindy, there's nothing he can do. He's just going to have to sit and watch as his teammate falls.
Now, needing to figure out what is he doing here, because yeah, look, against Lightning Man with the ammo rack as well, this is all but done and dusted. For Action X, this is a magical return to form, whereas for Matildas, a very downfall. The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Welcome back. It's week 4 of Split 1 of 2023. Cthulhu, what are you laughing at, mate? What's so funny? What's going on? Let us in on the joke.
I mean,
everyone
that was...
Everyone at home wants to know.
Yeah, look, I mean, the production was always just asking us about what's DN, and now we just can't seem to still figure it all out. So it's just, you know, it's always just an ever-evolving joke.
Anyone in chat know what DN is? Can you please let me know? Send Cthulhu a message on Twitter as well. Send him a DM. DM with DN. There you go. That works out nicely. By the way, look, we've got more important things to talk about. North Sydney Sentinels and Adelaide Action X coming at you in about 7 minutes or so. What do you think about this matchup? I mean, obviously both these teams now at this point are looking good to make it into playoffs. The question is going to be, where do they end up in playoffs, and will that even matter? Because again, Sentinels, I feel like when they get into playoffs, they're a bit of a different beast. So even if they were to end up last place going into playoffs, as long as they go into playoffs, they're still a threat.
Oh yeah, they absolutely still a threat at large. It's one of those sort of rosters that you can't really discount in any shape or form. They can still be an absolute terrifying entity. It's just the problem that I think going into some of the previous seasons, they were the ones that would always sort of have quite the advantage over a lot of the teams in terms of just them knowing what they have, what they need to do. Whereas going into this split, a lot of the other teams already managed to finally sort of find their rhythm in all this competition, and so that has taken Sentinels a little bit by surprise, I feel. So going into some of these matchups, look, I reckon they should still be, yeah, like you said, a threat at large, but this time I think the pressure is more so just on the fact that the core lineup of people needs to really perform.
All right, well, Action X, they've been looking pretty good, pretty decent so far. I mean, 1 loss, 2 wins overall. If you keep that kind of trajectory up, then you must be doing something right. Do you obviously want to see how they go in this matchup? I think this is obviously going to be a particularly tough one for them. Sentinels always a difficult task. I mean, the 1 loss that they do have is to Scorpions, so that's fair enough. But if that ends up with a loss to Sentinels as well, then obviously that's a little bit of a dampener on their season. But again, I think at this point, as long as you're getting into playoffs, that's kind of where the discussion really has to start. Is, you've had all this time now to kind of integrate the new members into your team, like Ravi, Lightning Man coming in, for example. Seemed to be doing pretty well, Lightning Man especially. I saw some pretty big stats coming through from him. So, I think take this and the next week as like over-glorified scrims almost if you're Action X. Don't worry too much necessarily about the results, but obviously you want to win. If you can just make your way into the playoffs, be ready for playoffs, really bring out all the stops then.
True. Look, I mean, looking at the lineup of Action X that we are seeing actually on our cameras, CJ, Donga, Rowan D, and Lightning Man, and Trax, this is a really solid lineup that Action X were actually able to really absolutely stomp away at the Matildas and actually able to shut them down pretty well. On the side of Sentinels, look, I'm not too sure if Rainbow is present, and if he is, that would be a good thing. Return, though, being as part of our highlight, look, he's been still a very consistent performer, I reckon, for Sentinels, where he was still able to be present in a number of battles. Yeah, look, penetration percentage is a little bit on the wonkier side, but overall, this has been still a pretty decent season for him to perform, even just on a personal note.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Return's always going to be a really consistent force. I don't know that you're always going to see him be the top stat player for every season, but he was for like basically the last couple of seasons. Has slowed down a little bit this season, but I think part of that is probably also due to the fact that Sentinels are having some more difficult games than what they have in previous seasons. So I don't think he's going to sit much below the top 5 for too much longer. Lightning Man for me has been kind of the really impressive force. I don't know that I expected him to be sitting 3rd overall as far as if we're just going to go with fantasy points as a metric, but in general, right, his performance seems to be really good. One thing I will say is that he has pretty much been relegated to the Super Conk, which does tend to be a bit of a damage farming role. So if he was put in another role or another tank, does he perform as well as he has? I don't know. I guess we'll answer that question when we get there. But at least, with what has been put in front of him and the job that he's been given to do, he's been doing a very good job of that. So can't complain. And looking forward to seeing how he's going to go today against the Sentinels.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, Lightning Man has been a great addition to the roster. He was, interestingly enough, one of the last few members alive in majority of the games, whether it's a losing or a winning round for Action X. He's always that guy that, would be sort of the damage farmer. But the whole of Action X as a unit, they have been performing absolutely spectacularly. They were able to really keep it all rolling. The fact that Trax continues to sort of add up that extra value to the roster, while CJ being sort of the head, the brains, has been great. And mind you as well, that 1 loss that Action X suffered was the one time that CJ was actually absent from the roster. So it definitely felt like Action X felt a little bit not lost, but probably just sort of lacking that concrete sort of decision-making process within them. Whereas for Sentinels, same could be said when Rainbow was absent as well. This is, I think, back on week 2 when they lost to Matildas, and things definitely looked a bit rough there for them, I'll have to say. But now that both of the captains are present, and Ghost Town, Himmelsdorf, and Tundra being there, I'm actually quite keen.
Well, Himmelsdorf, like I've said plenty of times in the past, I think is a bit of a stronghold for Sentinels. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would really want to be seeing Action X get themselves a 2-0 on Ghost Town, because I think getting a round off of Sentinels on Himmelsdorf. I don't know what the stats are looking like this season, to be fair. I know Sentinels have been a bit up and down, but just in general, this has been such a strong map for them in the past that I wouldn't want to be going into that map at a 1-1 scoreline and potentially facing the 3-1 overall going the way of Sentinels.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking back at the stats this season, even for Himmels, for Action X, they have a bit of a 50-50% win rate on the Himmels, whereas you look at Ghost Town, well, it's been only just 2 battles really there for them. They managed to to win out there. I believe that was their attack round that they managed to win out, and that was used against Matildas, which wasn't too bad. So I reckon Ghost Town might still be a decent map for them to take, but yeah, I absolutely have to agree with you. This is still going to be a bit of an uphill battle for AX, though remembering last season they were that one team that was able to chunk away a few maps away from Sentinels.
Did you predict Action X?
I was the one, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be interesting. I've gone for Sentinels. I generally do. I think they're the safe pick. Maybe not this season, though. Let's find out as we head on to Ghost Town already. A couple of super heavies in the mix you can see there for Sentinels. They do love to go toward the super heavies on any of these city maps. So 2 Mouse, IS7 Super Conk, and the Cax. Once again, the Cax pops up for Rainbow this time. Can he bring up a 6K game? Is he going to be AVP game 1 or AVP game 2?
Purely AVP game 1. Yeah, I think that might actually be the setup for the 6K game, because Donga, being spotted already, courtesy of that Cax, is going to be a perfect target to start being farmed up, but should be able to fall back just about in time for before the shots start flying towards him. But that is already that was already quite a good early indication of the things to come, I reckon. How did neither of them took any damage on that cross is absolutely beyond me. Wait, that's a triple cap that is actually coming around as well.
Kind of what I'm wondering too. I mean, this is a little bit worrisome now for Sentinels. How quickly are they going to be able to rotate their tanks into position? I mean, Supercon coming down from the north, that will take a while to get there. You got an IS7 and a Cax, and okay, they motor pretty quickly, especially the IS7. Once it goes downhill, picks up that top speed pretty quick. Should be there okay in time, but I mean, 15 seconds. Speed and Cindy.
Lightning Man needs to join.
Gonna have to look for some resets. Rainbow's not quite going to be able to find one there, and Cindy gets absolutely rolled as he takes that first peek. I mean, that's a good initial trade for Action X, but they've got to continue to push the issue. So far, not doing a bad job. I mean, that Super Conk is coming into play. You can see those shots coming through from the back, but if they continue to push forward here and isolate Cindy, then maybe they just take that Super Conk out of the fight.
Yeah, well, Cindy out of the equation and just one more shot returned should be able to start farming up the damage onto Lightning Man. But right now, look, with Trax being tagged up as he is, things could get a little bit problematic if he falls a little bit too early. But Speed being the next target should be fairly quickly wrapped up. But with Rainbow being there in a Cax as well, he has a huge DPM potential. I mean, 390 with 6.5 second reload, that's still a nasty amount of DPM.
Don't think he can really save Speed, though. So Rainbow and Dell are now basically in a 2v5. Returned is trying his best to W key into this engagement, but I don't think it's going to matter. He's not going to get there in time. Both of these teammates are going to go down really before Returned is even going to be able to basically fire a shot. Sure, he'll get one in onto CJ on that cross, but just look at Rainbow's HP. 768. He's out of the picture. He's on fire as well, if it couldn't get any worse for the Sentinels, and Dongalord picks that kill up. So it's just Returned. He'll try to farm up a couple of points here for the fantasy pickers, but that is about as good as it's going to get for him. And the round, well and truly, going to go the way of Action X.
Certainly so. quick and concise as well, gotta say, from Action X. Very decisive sort of set of moves that they've performed. And look, I would imagine that for the comms check as well, there's going to be quite a colorful recording of what Rainbow would have thought about his performance during that game in a CAX as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think across the board, Sentinels probably a little bit disappointed by that one. They gave up so much positioning for free. I mean, you saw, and you even mentioned how easily Action X got onto the cap. Like, normally you should be taking a little bit of damage getting onto that cap. And then it takes a long time, obviously, as we mentioned, for the Supercon to come down from the north. That was returned, and he got in a firing position, but by the time he did, like, he got a few shots off. Action X was already sort of well on top of that fight. They continue to push forward. Again, kind of isolating his angles away, and so he has to move again. He drives into Lightning Man. Fight continues to ensue, and Action X continued to kind of keep that Superconk out of the fight. So I'm kind of interested to see how much damage actually Returned was able to do. I don't think it'll actually be a bad number because he was the last one alive, but how much of it was relevant damage, I think, is probably more of the argument we could potentially have.
Yeah, look, I think that's going to be the question across the whole lineup of Sentinels. Just all about that, needed all about that impactful damage, and I don't think we really got to see a whole lot of them. Yeah, that cross towards the cap still remains an absolute mystery to me, Jordan. I'll be genuinely honest with you. How did neither of the Action X players were tagged during that whole ordeal is look beyond me. And but yeah, Return and Rainbow being top on the damage, albeit it's top of the damage, 2.5 and 1.5k damage, not particularly the biggest highlight. Whereas you look at Dongalord, 4k, but that is on S-Conk, so look, fairly expected.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, pretty good stuff from Action X. That was like super convincing. It looked actually quite easy for them in the end. So I'm wondering what Sentinels are going to be able to throw back in their face. I'll just have a look at the map stats for Ghost Town, and it seems to be a 50-50 split again.
Yeah.
A lot of maps are 50-50 this season. Cliff, the only outlier.
Mind you as well.
Can't be right, can it?
Look, I mean,
how can every map be 50-50 except for Cliff? I'm being trolled, am I?
I think you might be getting trolled there, yeah, for just a brief moment. But look, I mean, one thing worth noting there, that for Action X, this was the one side that they were quite convincing on the win as well against the Matildas last week. So the attack certainly worked out almost flawlessly here. The defense is where I'm actually going to be quite curious to see how will they be able to actually handle here, because I reckon Sentinels will be able to put a chip into their performance. And the other funny thing is, across all the weeks that so far we've had this split, Sentinels actually have not played a single Himmelslaw.
Right. Okay, well that's interesting. I mean,
So
I do think, I do think that they're going to know their way around that map though when we get there.
Surely. Surely they'll have full knowledge. But look, I mean, the one interesting part that I'm curious about, how will Sentinels be able to really handle it, is whether they are going to be try to sort of introduce a little bit more of a turtle-like hold. I mean, something across the lines of an E3 maybe of an introduction to have a little bit more impact in those sort of shot-for-shot trades, or whether it is going to be that heavy lean into what has been basically the staple of the meta for the Himmelsdorf, that is just that stack of the 2 E100s, 2 Mouse, and maybe, either an S-Conk or maybe even a cheeky T57 heavy. But I think out of all the teams, Sentinels will be the last ones to really pick the autoloaders. Or rather, those specific autoloaders.
Well, here we will get a bit of an insight.
Action X on the Centurion Action X.
Indeed. Once again, gets pulled out. Not so the case for the Sentinels. We do have one autoloader, Dell. 50B.
I don't hate that pick, but it's definitely, it has to almost be sort of like a pocket pick here for Ghost Town, in my opinion, because you would want to have the ability to brawl up close and personal, but you also want that mobility. So yeah, 50B kind of works into this scenario, but looking at the positioning, I believe actually the 50B is actually just sitting in the K0 line. Yeah, and that's Dell just sitting sort of far away, looking to possibly maybe farm up with the clip damage. Which yes and no kind of deal. Action X really need to establish their positioning here on the hill over Sentinels to have that really good high ground, but yeah, this is by far one of the more passive setups that I've really got to see from Ghost Town. I'll be genuinely honest with you, Jordan.
Already though, Action X getting some good damage numbers in. How is Rainbow taking so much damage?
Yeah, very, very
the
nasty.
IS4s both hitting you the shot. I would have thought Rainbow would have been hull down there, but maybe I'm getting the angles a bit mixed up. Either way, good shots. Sentinels, a 0 for 3 trade so far.
Yeah, look, I gotta say it's been a bit of an odd one, to be fair. Just the way how they've approached this whole play, they've approached this whole game. It's been rather stagnant is probably the other way to really describe this. CJ, if he hangs around the area for a brief moment longer, he might actually just be able to spot that rotation towards the 1 flag. But even then, the way how Sentinels are telegraphing their current position, it looks like it's just, going to be yet another just collapse to the 2 flag, which Centurion Action X should actually be able to farm up rather nicely. CJ has the angle. Yeah, there we go.
All right. Well, Sentinels eating a lot more damage as they cross onto the point. So far, Action X have not even had their paint scratched. This is unreasonable. Like I was saying, though, want to be seeing Action X go into Himmelsdorf with a 2-0. I think Sentinels are generally pretty good on that map, but maybe they're not even looking so hot here on Ghost Town. Then wonder if I'm starting to back Action X to potentially win this series from here. We'll see. Push coming through.
Hold your breath for now, though.
All right.
CJ just got spotted as well by the 50B off Dell, so that could be a big farming point. But in comes the actual push towards the flag, and a lot of bleed towards Donga without a whole lot of response either.
Yeah, I mean the Action X, Centurion Action X, I mean, is kind of isolated away from this fight. Very similar kind of a story to what happened to Returned when Sentinels was on the defense, and this is, again, a little bit of a deja vu sense, just the teams are flipped around this time. It's Sentinels on the attack, trying to get aggressive. They want to take down Dongalord. We'll be able to do that, but at the very least, for Action X, it's a 1-for-1 trade, which is still kind of keeping it in the mix. You got Lightning Man, very healthy, speed's on fire. He's taken down by Roendi. And Sentinels, well, I think they're pretty much out of the picture now, aren't they? It was hanging in the balance for a moment, but very quickly, Action X have established that crossfire, and Sentinels will say bye-bye to Ghost Town.
Yeah, look, I told you, Jordan, they have been looking very well organized, and I mean, the way how it's been for Action X has been just a phenomenal turnout, really. The way how they kept up their coordination when it works out for them has been great, and I mean, going into the Ghost Town look at 2-0, that's a really good start out for them.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. They look really solid in those first couple of games as well. So it's not even as if, you know, they're close and you can make the argument, oh, Sentinels are still sort of in this. They just got a bit unlucky, whatever. I mean, that's about as one-sided as a 2-0 is going to get.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, maybe this is the season of sort of where the Sentinels dynasty falls and we do get to crown sort of the new winners, or at least in terms of the regular season, because so far this has been a very rough time for Sentinels, no matter how you put it, between the fact that they already copped more losses than they did back on average from the previous seasons. It's already quite a bit of a point of concern, and seeing that we don't have Wymo, who, funnily enough, was that big player for Sentinels when they did manage to cop a win. This sort of now looks a little bit dicey, really, here for the Sentinels. Yes, Himmelsdorf should be still their playground, and they should know how to play it. But when you're applying so much pressure on them, when that 2-0 is looming over you, like, what can you do? Because they need to respond here with a 2-0 as well.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm wondering what is going on for the Sentinels. How do they go from being like basically undisputedly the best team in the region for like 3 seasons running to I mean, they might even be in danger of going into the playoffs as the last seeded team, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're not still going to finish first this season, but it does make for a very difficult run into the grand final. I mean, it's a real gauntlet. That's literally what it is. It's a gauntlet run. And one thing I can tell you is we're getting a substitution for the Sentinels. So I'll let you guys at home take from this what you will, but Rainbow is out and Safi is in for the next couple of games, or at least for the next game. Nobody spam the meme, okay? Nobody spam the meme in chat. You know the one, Cthulhu. Don't say it. You know.
Yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure. I think I know. Yeah. Look, I gotta say, yeah, it's a bit of a curious case. Rainbow being subbed out for Safi is look, not sure how to really take this, because generally speaking, Rainbow is usually sort of the brains behind Sentinels, and once Rainbow is out, or at least out for the time, things could get a little bit dicey there for them. I'll say it like this, because remembering that Cliff back when Rainbow was absent for the whole matchup, it was it was rough. It was rough at the sort of at the lowest of the lows for Sentinels. I mean, apart from the fact that Return did get ammo racked in a BZ-75, that's beyond the point. But look, things I would not envy right now for Sentinels. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, we did get to sort of take a look at the team comms video as we were coming into this game, and I remember watching that and thinking, oh, okay, Return was calling in that game. So I assume that's where we're going to go back to now for Sentinels, if Rainbow is not in the mix. How many games has Safi had so far in the season?
He had a few games, but most of them were not as sort of big, at least from my memory.
Played eight rounds. IS-7 4 times, Super Conk 2. E100 this time around. Didn't have a great performance in the E100 last time. Only 448 damage. His best performing tank, funnily enough, Cthulhu, is the Bat Chat. They should get him in the Bat Chat more often, I reckon.
That would be the map for the Bat Chat, honestly.
Sure.
But look, I mean, this could get quite interesting. That 1-1-3, that's what I used to call, at least, the JT special from the last few seasons. But it seems like now each and every team looking to adapt that sort of play. The one cool thing about 1-1-3s is obviously the heat rounds as well, comparative to something like the IS-7. So you do get the similar mobility, but you get the heat rounds to be able to outmatch the turrets of the E100s, which should be beneficial. But I mean, you're looking at the health bleed right now for Action X. This is not a good start.
Yeah, this is a little bit more like it for the Sentinels. They're kind of dishing out what they've received actually in the last couple of maps. So straight away, as we've mentioned, back onto Himmelsdorf. Sentinels looking pretty solid. Side scraping from Returned. Pretty unlikely to be getting through a mouse when it's angled like that. But they're going to try anyway. This is what is the damage taken medal or mission? What's it called? Steel Hunt, Steel something? I can't remember.
Steel Warrior.
This is where you're like farming your damage blocked stat.
True.
For that mission.
Yeah, for the 9E mission. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Look, I mean,
he's like, I need 10k guys. Can you just shoot me in the side for a little bit? Thanks.
Yeah, cheers. Look, I mean, by all means, if only the comp games would have counted for them, that would be actually kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. But
probably already at 2,500 there.
Yeah, probably sitting there. Oh, there's the shot pen. Right now, Dill actually could be in a bit of a trouble if he doesn't get to spot the 1-1-3 on that rotation.
Well, he spotted the E100. Good
And
map
he got
control being
spotted as
taken by Sentinels, but yeah, you're right about the 1-1-3 being a bit of a problem. Still unaware as to CJ's position.
Yeah, look, I can't really put a finger as to who will come out the victor here, because yeah, the initial sort of health pool does indicate towards the win for Sentinels, but right now Dell, if he gets caught out here by the 1-1-3, that's at least one, if not two shots that would go completely unpunished. And yeah, you can see that very big chunk of HP just disappear from the Dill's HP circle there.
Yeah, Speed definitely not having a good time now. Tucks himself into the pillbox and he'll just try to keep his head down, but reality is this is not going to be going very well for him at all. CJ and Dell, meanwhile, that fight continuing to ensue. Does look like it's only slightly favoring CJ here. But he might end up getting a bit of help from Trax just to ensure that Dell can't get up to any funny business. And by and large, I would make the argument that these trades have been favoring Action X in the last minute or two.
Yeah, I mean, if Dell can be isolated here and finished off with minimal losses, this could be great. But I mean, Trax already being on 600 HP could mean a bit more problems. And in comes the actual push, sort of in the form of Matilda-esque sort of play from Sentinels. Whilst we are actually sitting on a fairly even set of HP here. Big play here from Donga as well, that he would need to really execute it down to a T, because him being on full HP could pose a huge threat, and I think Safi really knows that.
Yeah, but I mean, he is still behind, so he's still a threat whether he's firing or not. Someone's going to have to turn their attention around for the Sentinels, and they're already down a tank. So now you can always make the argument that you're down 2 tanks. Safi, well, he might have been a little aware, but definitely cops the shot for free, and he honestly has to make a difficult decision. Do I turn around and deal with Donglord, or do I just try to join the fight here and win the brawl with my teammates? He's opted for the latter, which obviously, as you would know, is now going to mean that Donglord is going to get shots in for free. Action X farming a lot. CJ's got 3k damage. It's falling apart for Sentinels. This is going to be a 3-0 for Action X, and I think we're at that point now where Sentinels are going to lose this series.
Well, they still have a fairly healthy mouse, so seeing as Lightning Man just went sub 1k, I mean, there's still a slight opportunity for that comeback, but yeah, you are very much correct. Things are looking very dire here. Yeah, Speed is only on 8 HP, it's just about to be finished off. Yeah, this is looking like a clean wrap-up, and yeah, look, for Sentinels, yet another rough game. Look, admirable denying the frag, but I think that's slightly wrong game to do that in CJ.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Cindy, in the mouse, you mentioned had a decent chunk of HP, but that's not going to last too long. Donglord and Rowendi will put that one to bed, and it's Action X. They get themselves a 3-0. As ever, Donga is pumped. He's hyped up. Easy. Jeez. That looked really easy. I mean, 3 very convincing rounds for Action X, and you got a question. I mean, what's happening to Sentinels? Is it finally over? Is the dynasty over?
I think we are slowly creeping up to the point where it's just, it might actually be in fact over, where just so many plays went completely unpunished so many times. I think partially it could be karma. I mean, remembering one of the interviews from courtesy of Wymo as well, saying that, oh yeah, we have that one team that would beat us throughout the regular season, but everyone else are sort of a non-issue. And ever since then, it's been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, really, for them. More so negative emotions rather than positive ones, but emotions nonetheless. And I think the fact that Rainbow as well sort of subbed himself out for Safi sort of tells a little bit of a story of possible maybe even tilt.
Yeah, maybe. Obviously, take a look at the damage charts here. Speed, 2.7k, return 2.7k. Nice efforts from those two, but CJ's put up another big one, and Rowendi as well. 113 on the IS4 combining. I mean, again, pretty solid stuff across the board. Like, Lightning Man's done 3k, Donga's done 2k. Like, no one's really lagging behind too much for Action X.
Yeah.
Everyone's having their impact.
Yeah, that's what's been quite interesting for me to see, because remembering that, CJ, Donga, and even Trax were already a very solid core lineup, and then you introduce, Rowendi from Sentinels, you introduce Lightning Man back out of retirement, you introduce Ravi as well, and Action X really managed to reinforce themselves to the point where they're now the scary entities. Sentinels sort of almost starting to look like they're just burning out the last bits of this sort of the embers of their performance. And yeah, things are certainly not looking too well.
No, definitely not. So there'll be some big conversations to be had going into next week as to what Sentinels are going to be looking like. But I mean, not only that, obviously, again, playoffs is going to be another kind of a ball game for the Sentinels. I've said it a couple of times tonight. I think as long as you make it into playoffs, maybe it doesn't really matter how your season went, as long as you do get a spot in playoffs. And at this point, it kind of looks like Sentinels are pretty much locked in for a 5th place overall in the season.
Fourth place, yeah, something across those lines.
Well, Matildas got their win tonight.
Oh, true.
So they would be on 8 points. Sentinels is now on 4 points. Cannot go any higher than that this week. Action X will go up to 9. So, I mean, best case scenario for the Sentinels, they either see Scorpions or Panthers not, like, obviously getting 0 points out of this next series, and then maybe next week they can sneak a 4th off of one of those 2 teams. But they cannot catch Matildas now. They cannot catch Action X now. So they're either 4th or 5th best case scenario. But the reality is they're probably 5th.
Yeah, this definitely feels that way. It's definitely a little bit of a unfortunate turnout here so far for Sentinels, but look, maybe even something across the lines of a just get at least a round on the table, so at least it's not a complete 4-0, not a complete loss, but things could get a little bit still problematic.
Well, I will say the information that's been given to us is that Rainbow's PC is apparently dead. So that's not ideal, but what can you do at this point? Sentinels are done for this series. The best they can do is grab themselves one more round. Not that that's really going to do too much to the overall standings, I dare say. So,
I mean, still,
this squad on your screen will be very happy.
Very much so, yeah. Their whole coordination has been absolutely stellar, and absolutely loved seeing what they were pulling off with their performances. Curious to see how sort of focused they are around the sort of like the banana area / the park, where you would usually have at least one person sort of spotting the cross from that A4 position. But look, I mean, this might just be the round that Sentinels will be able to win to at least make it a 3-1. But yeah, you are very much correct. The damage has been already dealt in full in spades, and yeah, not much else to really say apart from, well, yeah, it was an effort. Excuse me.
All right. Well, tried and true from Sentinels, isn't it? Straight up the hill, straight down the hill. They love doing this. It seems like Action X is pretty prepared for that. They've got all their guns pointed in the direction of the 2 flag, except for Trax.
Yep, that seems about right. A lot of punishment coming around. That is a good firing line set up there. That early punishment should really come in handy once they do get to the actual brawl. Now for Action X, they need to make sure that they are staying sort of formed up together. That is excellent from here, from Action X here, once again.
Yeah, dude, what a read from Action X. They have just completely counter-stratted Sentinels. You got to tip your hat. This is looking pretty unwinnable for the Sentinels from here. The only way that they might is if there's a little bit of a cheeky cap. I mean, you got Safi and Cindy sitting in the back pocket, so it's just a question of whether or not anyone from Action X can get there to reset. But that is a lot of damage to bring back for Sentinels. Don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's definitely looking really rough. I mean, when returned just on the set of crosses was already bled to just half HP, this is already a rough gig. Safi just drives out in the open and gets farmed up by... with the 113 and the E100, that's okay. That's a GG at this point. Yeah,
I think I see what's happening. I think I see what's happening here for Sentinels. I think they're just done. I think it's, you know, whatever. Let's just get out of here. I mean, the 50Bs are going to duel the 113 and the IS4. Dongalord Does a great job for blocking, but still Speed will slide a shot through onto tracks. But overall, I mean, yeah, this is so done. This is so incredibly done. Action X will find the 4-0 tonight. And Sentinels are looking about as bad as they ever have, if I'm being completely honest, in the ANZPL.
Yeah. Definitely one of the lowest of the lows. We already got to see some of the previous seasons where they were at their highest of the highs, it seems, and now, well, we get to see a little bit of a contrast in that regard. But yeah, look, unfortunate is probably the only way to really describe this. A bit of a tragic turnout, really, for them, where we sort of hoped that there would be a little bit more of a battle from them. But yeah, look, frustration is probably the only emotion that is currently sitting in the mind of the Sentinels.
Yeah, disappointing night, definitely. And as we mentioned already, the implications of that for their run for the rest of this season does mean that on the standings, it looks like they probably should end up in 5th spot. I mean, we'll sort of see how the results play out next week. I'll have a look at who they're playing against. Scorpions. So actually what they would hope to see is Scorpions lose tonight. Then they have their own destiny in their own hands. They could beat Scorpions next week and take 4th. Which is still not like, you're not going to write home about
still a
nuts
concept.
But that's about as good as it's going to get for them. So, geez.
That is still an absolutely nuts concept to me. Just, you know, us discussing whether it's going to be 5th or 4th place for Sentinels after, what, 3 seasons that they had just an absolutely stellar turnout for themselves. If we turn slightly different to a different sort of perspective over the situation, this also tells a story of so many teams now finally growing up to sort of the same power. I mean, we're talking about Action X, who just seen an absolutely spectacular turnout. We're talking about Panthers, who were able to take down Sentinels before, and they've shown an absolutely phenomenal gameplay as well. We're talking about Matildas finally in their, 3rd, if not 4th iteration, that finally they are seeing a good performance and good light for them. So I think it's just that we're reaching finally the point where the whole league finally caught up to the Sentinels level and are actually able to perform in spades.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of that. Maybe it's Sentinels falling off. I mean, that's a conversation that I think we can have when we finally get to playoffs and when we get to see Sentinels play in playoffs. I've still got that little caveat in the back of my head. I don't want to call it just yet. I mean, it's not looking great for Sentinels right now, but I've fallen into that trap before, and we'll see what they can provide for us when we do get into playoffs, because that's when we usually see a different side to the Sentinels. Lightning Man, top of the damage charts this time around, 3.4k, pretty solid stuff from him. Again, pretty across the board performance from Action X, everyone getting involved. Love to see it. And well, yeah, I mean, look, what do we have to say about that? I guess really did not come together tonight for the Sentinels.
Yeah, look, not at all. Things definitely look quite rough there for Sentinels, no matter how you put it. For Action X, they had a really good round. I will say, though, that first round had to be a bit of a sort of a streak of luck. The way they just went completely unpunished in the first round on that cross, I think was the original sort of the beginning for the problems for Sentinels. The fact that they weren't able to thoroughly punish it was a problem.
Yeah, massive problem indeed. It's going to take some real looking at for the Sentinels to bring it back to something workable next season or even in playoffs. But Action X, on the other hand, I mean, we've got to talk about them. They're looking pretty phenomenal in that series. So, potential grand finalist contender. I think the really cool thing about this season is it's not just actually the top 2 that get to play on LAN. Obviously, the fact that we get to see 3 teams playing on LAN is pretty damn cool. So, something that all these teams are going to be kind of feeling like, oh, you know what? We don't actually have to be Sentinels or Scorpions, because that's generally been the teams that have gone through the LAN final. We could actually be, still kind of in the running to make it to LAN, and then, you know, who knows what could potentially happen, and especially given the way that Sentinels is looking at the moment. I mean, I think Matildas, I think Panthers, I think Action X, they're all sort of licking their lips thinking, geez, we could definitely be one of those 3 teams at LAN.
Absolutely. So look, yeah, I'm keen to see how the playoffs and how will the wrap up of the season really go, because look, if Action X are performing the way how they do right now, this is going to be an exciting set of playoffs.
Indeed. All right, well, we've got Roendi to have a chat with and bring him in. Mate, that must feel pretty good, right? You've gone from Sentinels into Action X and you've just walloped them tonight. So is there anything you want to say, or is there no bad blood, nothing like that? What's the feeling?
It's just it's good to get a 4-0 on the board for sure. So I think going into playoffs, trying to get that first seed and guarantee a land, a 4-0 is always the way that we wanted to go. So yeah, really happy to have the 4-0 and convincingly, I think, too.
Definitely.
I want to get your sort of thoughts on the Ghost Town, because with the way how things really worked out, especially in that first round, where you had the perfect cross there onto the cap. After that, it was a full-on collapse. Was it sort of all read in from the beginning when you guys saw the lineup of your opponents, or was it more so just sort of on the go, just very sort of strict calling and following the path?
No, we actually had two kind of deviations that we were looking for there. We thought we might find a zone kind of in that hold down like we do normally on the ramp. And when we didn't, we thought the cap was always the play. We could sneak around the outside and trigger it late, get a free shot. So once that happened and we kind of got a free spot on the mice, we kind of knew where everyone was and we were able to identify where the push was going to happen.
Look, you're at the top of the standings at the moment. Obviously, pending the results of this next series, you'll be joined by potentially one other team. You're obviously looking forward to sort of potentially making your way through to the LAN finals as well. Who do you sort of see as the other top competitors at the moment? Because I think obviously Sentinels is not looking like they're in that discussion right now. So who are the three teams to LAN as far as you're concerned?
I think Matildas have shown they're really capable of pushing on to people, but I think based on some scrims, I think Scorps and Panthers this week really kind of tuned us up a bit. So I think they're definitely a threat when Madhouse and Bales are present. So Scorps and Panthers are my picks to kind of really put pressure on everyone.
All right. Well, we'll see whether or not it'll be Scorps, Panthers, and Action X in the finals. Come the finals, obviously playoffs still to discuss. Roendi, thank you very much for your time. And
thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Good stuff tonight. Yeah, Cthulhu, overall, I think that's probably not a bad shout, right? I think those three teams are looking pretty good. Matildas will be a bit disappointed maybe to miss out there. But yeah, I think at this point it's hard to sort of make an argument for the Sentinels. But then again, like we've been saying time and time again, it doesn't necessarily mean that a bad season is going to translate into a bad playoffs run. I've seen it before from Sentinels. I would not be surprised to see them do it again.
Yeah. Look, I'm definitely still looking forward to see how will the playoffs really work out here, because obviously a whole different ball game, probably a little bit more pressure as well to get in through it all, because I would imagine for a number of teams, at least they will find some sort of return on the investment in terms of that, hey, they already qualified for the playoffs. They don't really have to be as sort of stressed about making into it now that it's also the playoffs that are a whole lot more open as well. So I'd say, yeah, the game is far from being over. So even for Sentinels, they could absolutely still pull off the grand comeback. But seeing as how overall it's been going, it's going to be quite a rough one.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we've got one more match tonight, and it should be a pretty good one. The Panthers and the Scorpions. You guys just heard it there from Roendi. Two good-looking teams. Let's find out how good right after the break.
Watch your HP.
Bolly's coming for you. Bolly's coming for you.
I know.
Which way? Don't peek.
I found
Nice. Run. Go forward.
Okay, Bolt, I need to go in. I got all four, but I need to go in. I need to clip, and you need to hide. Like, I just need to play it. I need to play solo this, okay?
Yeah.
I think that's the only way we win.
What's your HP? What's your HP?
Full, look.
No, sorry. What's his HP?
Full.
He's taking. He's in the bushes. He's gone into the bushes here.
Right now?
Yep, we can.
Yeah, we kill him, guys.
Robin.
Kill him.
Yeah.
Kill him. Oh, Robin, I don't care. Robin.
Drive over.
Robin. Go over. IS7, go over.
Robin.
Yeah, Robin, I put one into him. IS7 next to me on my left.
Can someone kill? I didn't even hit my microphone. Hit the table.
Yeah, you're doing a Russian.
Jesus Christ.
Aussie?
Yeah, I don't know.
What are you doing?
I'm just driving down here. Hey.
What the?
Are we trying to throw here? Is this the name of the game?
Apparently.
Bruh. Alright. Because I thought I could get him without him getting me. It's fine, it's fine.
Despite the fact he isn't.
I'm gonna go corner if I can.
I'm fine, watch this, I win.
Okay, dude.
He missed?
Wait.
He did a me, he literally did a me.
What is going on?
Oh. Nice.
I'm fucking running, dude. Can you track him?
HG.
Wait. Okay.
Nice. Just keep running.
Just wait for me to clip.
He's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Oh.
Aussie low rolls as well, we lose.
No, I don't.
Oh.
Can you HG that?
Trying. He's just gonna HG me. That.
Guys, fucking hell, what are we doing? That was so fucking shit.
Dude.
No, I'm just gonna drive.
Bro, you could just YOLO.
I was fucking, we were all gonna go full out again. Sorry, boys.
You need to shampoo that motherfucker. Holy shit.
I did. I shampooed like 20 minutes.
This shit's so white.
Yeah, I'm blind as hell.
The Bills can't keep it in.
Stupid.
Alright, 5 seconds. Let's get it. Important game today. Let's win.
I'm
We need this.
focusing on the
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, 15 seconds. Let's eat the bread from Jesus' hands at the Last Supper.
What?
Hello? I was just appealing to Dell, getting him in the mood, reading out some bits.
Well, I was
69
I've been listening.
Type of thing that I was saying in the beginning, when you drink WA tap water, that's the comes out. Like, to be honest, I wanted them to reverse sweep us. Like, what?
Wait, did we win?
Yeah, we won.
Nice job,
That's
one,
looking 6 there.
one
That is me,
one
but
of
we
the
were
most
always-
positive things I've heard from Twit. I'm not gonna lie.
What did Twit say?
To be honest, I wanted them to reverse sweep us.
Season 10 of Battle Pass, the first of many seasons in 2023, starts at the end of February. Over 3 chapters, the following tankers await you. Sandro Mancini, a lucky veteran who's ready for everything, will be in his Rinoceronte in the Knicks' progressive style. A polyglot with the knowledge of 8 languages named Emil Kittel, plus his mouse in the Wüstenschiff style. Rebecca Holmberg, the best spy in covert operations, will command her Udis 1516 in the Svadilfari style. These commanders are very different, but what unites them is one goal and one common story that you will discover during the season. What's more, all 3 are ready to lead you through endless sands and onto rewards. Most rewards are familiar, but there are also new ones, like bounty hardening, for example. It'll help you survive not only under the scorching sun, but also in the hottest of battles. In the Items for Points section of the in-game store, you will find styles from Battle Pass Seasons 7 and 9. And don't forget about the Items for Tokens section of the in-game store as well. First and foremost are Tier 9 vehicles, of course. And there are additions to their ranks. The sturdy and confident BZ-58-2 with a powerful gun and reliable armor. The Kampfpanzer III Project 07HK with 2 firing modes. It's menacing and effective in whichever mode it uses. Here's another new, important feature that will appear in the middle of the season. Collections are where you will be able to see all your gathered customization elements from all seasons, starting with Season 10. You can get up to 3 additional tokens for collecting these elements. A reward decal and secret materials that will uncover the details of the story of 3 commanders will also be available. More details about collections will come later. And for now, stay tuned. Collect rewards, learn all the secrets of the desert, and fight in style. Onslaught is back, Commanders. A new season is coming in April, and it's called the Crimson Griffin. It will be a continuation of the previous season of Onslaught and will carry on the traditions of the competitive mode. We plan to test some new game mechanics and introduce a few changes this season before the launch of the next one in the fall. Let's take a look at what's new. The main mode rules remain the same. 7v7 clashes in Tier 10 vehicles using role skills and capturing points of interest. So generally speaking, everything sounds familiar. However, a number of changes aimed at making Onslaught even more diverse and interesting await you this season. Some of them will be actively tested and might remain in the mode permanently. One such feature, modifiers. Modifiers are special tools that change some vehicle parameters within Onslaught. This is a great opportunity for players to diversify their usual vehicle selection, roll out in interesting but forgotten vehicles, and try out some new winning tactics. 2 modifiers will be added to Onslaught during the common test. They will change vehicle hit points as well as the cooldown time of consumables. They might stay in the mode after testing, but it will depend on the data gathered from the common test, and of course, player feedback. So if players don't like the modifier mechanic, it won't be introduced. If they think it's interesting, however, it will definitely see the light of day in the upcoming season of Onslaught. The main tools that players use on the battlefield are role skills, some of which have been reworked for the new season. For example, the One for All skill. If you're playing Breakthrough Heavies, but your team also has vehicles with different roles, this skill will now increase the major qualification of crew members. The more diverse your lineup, the higher the bonus. For tracked light tanks, support TDs, and support heavy tanks, the role skill at level 1 is now available from the very start of battle. For assault medium tanks, the Fury skill will now also provide a bonus to stabilization in addition to its current bonuses. The Inspire skill for versatile medium tanks has become a global skill that affects all allies on different parts of a map and can work with other role skills. The Bullseye skill will now increase the damage caused by sniper tank destroyers, as long as they remain unspotted. On top of introducing modifiers and making changes to role skills, we've added 2 new maps, Glacier and Airfield, which have been adjusted for Onslaught. Now they have points of interest, and the locations of spawn points were changed. Other maps also got their fair share of balance changes, which will now require testing. This is why their improvements will be made based on player feedback from the common test, and will continue right up to the
G'day guys, welcome back, of course, here for week number 4 of the ANZPL and Cthulhu. I mean, so far, some pretty interesting results today. We've got the Ducks get themselves a win, Action X get themselves a win. Who's going to get the win here in the 3rd series? Scorpions up against the Panthers. I mean, we talked about this one potentially being quite close, and well, here we are, we get to find out.
Yeah, we do get to find out indeed. Look, I think this is going to be one of the closer games that we got to see for a while, because Panthers are sort of on the rise. They've been really performing really well, in a very sturdy way, and they were really holding on quite well. The introduction of Critical as well has been absolutely phenomenal. Has been really cool. So overall, yeah, it's been good to see them perform. But on the other hand, you have Scorpions that have been, perfecting their performance over the span of just so many seasons. So they are also a heavy, a heavy hitter team.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, Panthers, I mean, like I've said in the past, I don't think there's any surprise that I'm a fan of this team. Obviously, Madhouse Bales, I think, are really good. I thought that they actually had a pretty good core roster together, and I was quite happy to sort of see that they maintained the roster even though they had kind of a bad result last season. So hopefully we'll get to see them on land this season. I feel like it's definitely a possibility with a roster like this. Today's match, I think, will tell us a lot. It could be a pretty tough one for them. So, look, they they won against the Sentinels, they won against the Wolverines, they lost against Action X. Action X is looking like a pretty hot prospect at the moment. I think the results so far look pretty solid for Panthers, so every possibility that they can beat Scorpions tonight. Got a good core roster here together, so I mean, I can't really complain about what I'm getting from these guys. But yeah, look, I guess going up against Scorpions is always going to be a big test, right?
Yeah, well, it was the big test as well against Sentinels, which they managed to pass pretty well. But yeah, I think Scorpions being a much more stable sort of roster at large in this season, they would definitely be the biggest sort of foe here for Panthers. So look, I'm definitely keen to see how it will really come through because, I mean, we're looking, Scorpions, really nothing changed in terms of their lineup. The one thing that did change is the introduction of Benny on a much more frequent basis. Now Scorpions are actually looking like a fully functioning 7-man roster, which similar case how it was for AX. It's a great time to watch them perform because this is the Scorpions at their scariest point, I reckon.
Yeah, I definitely think it's been a slow burn for Scorpions, hasn't it? They've slowly but surely gotten like all 7 of these members integrated into the roster. We've had previous seasons where we've talked about, oh, this is the core 5 of Scorpions, and I genuinely believe that there was a core 5 at that point. JT would like to tell me otherwise, but we're at that point now where I think you can kind of just interchangeably drop players in and out and still kind of have the same relative strength across the board, regardless of which 5 come in and play on any given night. Sure, I might have my preferences. I don't think you can lose JT. I don't think you can lose Aussie. I think those 2 are kind of a lock-in for pretty much any game. I do think Russian has kind of dipped off the pace a little bit this season as opposed to the previous couple. And I think Knight has definitely picked up the pace a little bit. So there are some conversations to be had there. But as a general rule, I definitely think just across the board, Scorpions is going to be able to field a really, really solid 5, regardless of who that does end up being. Will be kind of interesting to see who they play with at finals if they make it there. So, I mean, that's always going to be difficult, right? You have to choose what you would consider your strongest 5. And, well, I guess the first question is whether or not we're going to be seeing Scorpions at finals. But right now, it's definitely looking like they're hot on their way to doing that.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, for Scorpions, the funny bit is that they never really stopped, developing. They never really stopped evolving. And going into the playoffs, there's even now, like, say we go for quite a prolonged, mind you, as well, of a theory craft. We could see possibly Scorpions, push to the grand finals again and possibly have a good chance at winning the grand finals, but it wouldn't be against Sentinels, which would be almost, funny to me because, so many seasons back-to-back, they would be struggling to, best the Sentinels. And the one time that there is even just a slight possibility that Sentinels wouldn't even make it to the or not to the playoffs, to the LAN, that will be one of the most interesting times for Scorpions to really perform.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, maybe not the ideal storyline. It's not exactly what you'd want to see because what you'd want to see, I think, if you were really looking at it from the revenge storyline perspective, is Sentinels versus Scorpions in the final, Scorpions finally getting the win. That would be like kind of the most hype result. But in any other case where Scorpions go into the grand final and Sentinels is not there, then you have to say that Scorpions would be the favorites, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, look, I mean, going into the player highlights as well, we remembering the interview from the Panthers last week, they were mentioning that, against the Sentinels, they had to come up with some of the, either big brain or smooth brain ideas, and it was JS at the helm. So, I mean, JS definitely was that big element for that roster that was able to really, really get the Panthers to where they are at. I mean, you're looking at the stats here, apart from the penetration percentage, everything else seems to be all sort of par for the course.
Yeah, definitely. JS, I think obviously, there was some discussions on his behalf about being a 5-star pick last season, now down to a 2-star pick. I think great value for a 2-star pick. I've had him in my team
absolutely
every week. Don't know if I'd pick him as a 5-star, but as a 2-star, yeah, absolutely. Great value. So good stuff from JS this season thus far, and big reason why Panthers are obviously being quite so successful. In fact, he's one of their best performers alongside Twit and Critical, right? The guys that I like to talk about, Bales and Madhouse, they're not really putting up the numbers, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, JS has been really, really solid player, just overall. And yeah, look, Panthers overall just managed to really showcase us some really great performances, really great, turnouts. And sort of on the side of the Scorpions has been a very sort of good set of pickups too, where JT being sort of that, I guess, the alternative person to JS, being the big brain man, the call him, I guess, yeah, the father of that roster. Even remembering the comms check, it's definitely been quite a curious sort of dynamic, really, for Scorps, where he is sort of that sole voice to really command the whole roster.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's another one of those scenarios where obviously he's kind of a veteran and you would be expecting him to kind of lead from the front. But I wonder what the world would look like where, JT doesn't play a game. I don't really recall any games where he hasn't actually been, in the roster for like at least the vast majority of the rounds. Like, I know he's taken a step back for like 1 or 2 rounds here and there, but it'd be interesting to sort of see how that would work out, because we've kind of seen that experiment from the Sentinels, right? Sometimes Rainbow's not playing. I haven't really ever gotten that, I don't think, from Scorpions.
Yeah, no, Scorpions, just felt like they were always sort of still keeping it fairly stable. Looking at the map, speaking of some stability as well, Prop Rock being picked by Panthers, which felt like very much of a home ground for Scorpions, but Scorpions bringing out the Sand River could be a rather interesting prospect. We haven't really seen a lot of really high impact performances.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, off to the races as we head on to Sand River. And it'll be an interesting one. I'm really looking forward to this series. So let's crack on into it and see what we're going to get. Couple of interesting picks. 2 Centurion Action X's for Scorpions. STB1 for Bales. Don't mind seeing Bales in the STB1. Always a interesting tank.
Yeah, look, STB1 definitely can be one of those tanks that would be sort of a niche pick, but in certain positions, it is a godly tank that can really pump out the damage while still staying hull down. The turret is just enough to be that big sort of bouncing point. Looking at the setup as well for Scorpions, I mean, quite a passive positioning right now for the S-Conk and the Action X between Benny and Russian. But on the side of Panthers, they almost turning this defense into what feels like an offense. The double IS-7s could be a really big issue if they decide to really collapse onto JT. And this... All right. At the moment, looking like JT is just sort of stalling out here. We are looking to really just, for now, sort of scout out, find the pressure points for Scorpions, with JT already taking the initial shot. That's not going to be particularly too ideal. But it is quite almost uncharacteristic for the Scorpions to be almost this passive on a map like Sand River. I've so grown accustomed to see, them to be those big performers, or rather big, sort of very actionable team, whereas this one feels odd.
Yeah, very slow and steady from Scorpions so far, isn't it, right? A little bit of bleed coming back and forth onto JT in particular, but aside from that, nothing really too exciting going on. Just trying to work the southern side of the map. You've got one of the Centurion Action X's down there, but aside from that, yeah, really just trying to slowly strangle Panthers. Panthers more than happy to sit back in the hills and really do nothing for the moment. Yeah, well, I mean, they are starting to put the pedal to the metal right now, which is potentially going to start putting some of that pressure back on the Super Conk.
With the push starting to come around, JT once again been spotted Panthers realizing that he hasn't yet fallen back is the perfect opportunity for that collapse. And once again, that double trouble, 1400 damage flying into JT, absolutely scot-free. Yes, Critical is taking a couple of shots here and there, but that is it. That is negligible comparative to what has been done to JT. That's a whole tank out. That's a S-Conk out of the equation. And now Scorpions are scraping together to try to find some form of return on their investment.
Yeah, indeed. Not really looking likely at the moment, though. The Panthers well set up, and they've already sort of punched straight on through the armor of the Scorpions. So, dare say this is going to be a tough one to win from here. I mean, you do still have a couple of members of Scorpions trying to fight for it. Ignite from Napalm.
That would be great. That would be good right now for Scorpions to at least equalize the playfield just even a little bit. With Twit out of the equation, that could be great. But even then, taking quite some time to get rolling. No, couldn't even ram any more shots into Aussie. And, well, at this point, 4v4. But you look at the health disadvantage, it's all, you know, almost just about a 1k, 1.5k differential here.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, no. Yeah, already another tank falls. Napalm out. Benny is looking to be next to the chopping block. Scorpions are falling apart. Jordan, if not in this round, Scorpions, did they just sort of fumble here and just stumble around, which ended up being the issue for them and the closure not in their favor, or is it just Panthers diff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just Panthers diff, right? They're just a little bit more decisive. They sort of spot that hole, they open it up, bring it down, and kind of very much reminiscent of what Matildas was able to do a little bit earlier on tonight. They're able to sort of wolfpack their way around and catch off individual tanks, and then, well, things like this happen. Critical over the top, doesn't quite manage to land that killing blow onto Aussie. But when all's said and done, this was a very, very decisive win for the Panthers. But I will throw in the caveat that defensive side of Sand River, so...
True. That is a very valid point. Though, I mean, remembering the usual sort of turnout on the Sand Rivers is usually a defense that would end up being a little bit more of a, you know, a little bit more of a passive almost play and waiting for the attackers to really come into usually the setups. Whereas here it was completely polar opposites. Panthers just decided to say, hey, we are just going to enjoy really our push, and that is it.
Yeah, I think all things considered, you know, you look at that one as the Scorpions, you have to kind of just write it off. You have to say, like, we didn't really get the chance to compete there. We unfortunately lost one of our members. It was a 4v5. Let's shake that one off and go into our own defensive side and find a one for one. End of the day, obviously, you're not going to really be seeing too much more come through in the end. And so, Scorpions and Panthers, so far, 1-0, favoring Panthers.
Yeah, Panthers really doing really well overall. I gotta say, almost a surprise how well that really worked out for them. Just general performance has been really great on the side of Scorpions. Yeah, look, you're looking at the faces of like Napalm, like JT, definitely concerned and sort of like, well, what happened? And I think that's the only really real question, because for Scorpions, they needed to really exercise that aggression that they've been exercising before. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little bit struggling to find sort of the reasoning. What really happened to Scorpions? Meanwhile, Critical is seeming to be bathing in God's light, it seems.
Yeah, well, hasn't he always been like? Hasn't his? I don't know what it is. It must be his monitor, or does he have a light in front of him that's faced that would be trolling at that point. But
this is flashbang.
Either that or his monitor is so bright. Like, dude, I've got two giant studio lights in front of me and my camera doesn't look that blown out, so I'm not sure what Chris doing wrong.
Surely it's just the exposure. It's just the rest of the room is just so dark that it's just the light pops through so brightly.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, regardless, like, this has been already a huge turnout for Panthers. I mean, we're looking at Bales. Finally, the person that you've been hyping for what, a season and a half now? Finally, we're seeing, you know, that huge number, that 4.5k damage from him.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if it was because I was hyping him up. I don't know that I was like overhyping him, you know, because the first season that he came back, like he was sick. He was insane. He was top of the stats. This was Bales every single round. It was like 3K plus minimum. He was farming. And, you know, then obviously things didn't quite go so well last season. But I do think Bales, as an individual, is one of the most impressive players in the league. And I think also the tanks that he tends to play do lend towards some of these sort of carry, high damage kind of roles. So you put those together, obviously there's always going to be a bit of a highlight on him. And yeah, when he doesn't perform and doesn't deliver, then it's tough. But looking a little bit better here.
I gotta say, that initial bleed, though, onto JT has been kind of phenomenal from Panthers. Being able to just trickle the HP just down to just enough to justify that push has been great. Which I gotta give kudos. That was good to see. That was cool to see. I gotta say, I'm still not particularly as big of a fan of the double Cax pick from Scorpions, or rather, it didn't really play out as much as I would have thought it would. But look, maybe later down the line we'll see the evolution of that choice.
Yeah, I think Scorpions is a very hard team to kind of set your expectations for when it comes to tank selections, because they tend to pick a very large variety of tanks, right? They're always the ones that are kind of trying to innovate or trying to find something different, weird, whatever. So, look, end of the day, I don't think you can necessarily go to Scorpions and say, oh, look, you should have picked the meta tanks, because that's just not what they're going to do. They're going to try to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. And yeah, maybe in this case it didn't work out, but let's see what they've got for us on the defense. I think that's going to be the big talking point. If they can at least 1-1 this, then, you know, we're kind of getting what we would expect out of this series. If it ends up, though, as a 2-0, then that's where we start to get a little bit worried, definitely.
Yeah, this is where Panthers could really run away with a full dub for themselves, where Scorpions could really be left in the dust there. But look, we won't really count them out just yet. I mean, once again, seeing some rather unusual choices, or rather very rare choices. The Udes, the Kranwagen coming around. It's a good time to be alive to see so many tanks being reintroduced into the meta. It's no longer just, you know, oh, how many M454s we're gonna see? Is it 1 or 2? Or how many, you know, IS4s or E100s or S-Kongs, and that is it. Now we get to see, you know, the 5A, the Cax, the 277s, even the Kran and the Udes get their bit of a, you know, the start time. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this turnout so far.
A little bit of me would be interested to see what would happen if there was no tank caps. Like if you could pick whatever tanks you wanted, no limit on 2 of any given tank, what would we see? Would we just see like 4 Super Kongs or something? I don't know.
5 mice on Himmels.
Yeah, exactly. Or exactly like you know, 5 E100s or whatever on Himmels or something like that. I mean, probably last season we would have seen like a lot of M454s, I guess, but
yeah. Imagine with E100s as well, varying just as well, different caliber sizes as well for a different purpose too. That could have actually introduced quite a few interesting intricacies to the play. But in the meantime, we actually got to see JT take a few shots once again. Him being at the forefront, one would expect him to be that sort of center of attention. But that's not ideal start, really. Sub 2k HP already. That's far from the ideal beginning. But, I mean, Scorpions, they get to play a whole lot more passively. I mean, look at that chunk of the tank sitting at the H and J line as well, at the H90. That is a deadly stack as well. Because, I mean, them basically shooting at any other tank that gets spotted out in the open, that is GG. That is at least 1,500 damage per volley really going out.
I understand what you're saying. Russian has been spotted. Don't know about Aussie and Napalmer, though. It doesn't look like they've been seen. And he's going to start working his way southward as well. And in the meanwhile, JS is the only one that's lit for the Panthers. But it definitely does look like it's going to be more of a southern attack. Which is probably good news for Scorpions, considering JT is a little isolated up north and already tagged a little bit. they wouldn't really be wanting to see too much happening on that side of the map. Most of their forces are concentrated towards the south side. So Scorpions reading this one okay.
No way that connects actually from Bales here. Yeah, thought as much. But that we got to see a few of those green spots that Bales could have actually penned there on JT, which would have been actually huge from that range as well. But yeah, look, it's been definitely an interesting turnout. I reckon for Panthers here, they could really keep on applying the pressure as long as those 5As can stay in the battle, as long as the Centurion of Bales can keep supplementing that push, I reckon.
Back and forth across the map, aren't they?
All right, yeah, it's been both rounds have been very slow at the play, but it finally seems like attack from the defense, funnily enough, once again is upon us.
Yes, is in a bit of trouble here. Palmer eventually does get proxy spotted as he starts to go around that corner, but well, JS already copping a bit of a beating and is trying to get back out to safety, but it very much looks like he's going to be a dead man. There is no one from the Panthers here to help him out at all. And for JS, all that he can really hope to achieve is to get as much damage down as possible before he dies, because he is done.
Yeah, that's basically GG for him. One more shot and he is basically cooked. Yeah, there we go. Very quick conclusion. Critical as well, being bled on the cross. This is what we were expecting from Scorpions, and yeah, you might have been just right, Jordan. Defense diff on the Sand River, and it works out almost like magic here, really.
Russian working his way through the river in mid, going to come across Twits. I mean, JT is having a bit of trouble up toward the northern side of the map, and there is 50 seconds or so for the reset. Benny's slowly making his way there. I do think Scorpions have to be a little bit aware of that cap timer, because JT's definitely not getting the reset. He'll die probably before he gets there. So who's it going to be? And if Madhouse, I don't know, what if Madhouse somehow gets on there? Start to cause problems.
That could be problematic. I mean, look at that. 2 people currently committed to getting rid of Twit, and that is so far actually working flawlessly here. Despite Night Palmer taking the shot, JT will actually start at least harassing Madhouse, whilst Benny will be the main aggressor. Right. And, well, you were saying that he would die. Well, at least he is still able to reset the timer.
Yeah, he didn't actually get punished for that as much as I thought that he would. But end of the day, obviously, yeah, if they get the reset, Scorpions have won this round. And very clearly, they get that reset without too much trouble. And so, in the end, no harm done. No harm, no foul. JT on the reload here. He's just going to leave Benny for dead, basically. That's not very fair. But it is going to give JT at least another 1 shot in.
Yeah. Hey, at least we get to see a 1-1 here between the 2 teams, so it's not as sort of a clean-cut sort of turnout as it was for the past 2 games. So it's good to see that it's still a very closely cut contention. Bales, oof, that is a lot of punishment for just that 1 pick just to finish off JT. But yeah, at this point, it is basically all done and dusted, unless, again, a magical ammo rack on somebody like Russian comes around, which, again, highly, highly dubious.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a world where Panthers was on the defense here and maybe they were playing the timer and Scorpions had to come over to them, then yeah, you could say if they all focus fire well, as someone comes over the top, blow them up instantly, played out the 3v2. I'm trying to grasp at straws, but the simple fact of the matter is they're not even on the defensive side. They have to go over into this fight, and so that, of course, is going to be pretty much the end for the Panthers. It's a slow death, but it is a death nonetheless. And so the scoreline eventually will read 1 apiece.
Ooh. Yeah, very nicely done. Good coordination and good return from Scorpions after what was a very, very upsetting attack for them. And good to see, at least even on the Panthers cameras as well, they are still talking. You know, yes, they had problems. Yes, they had issues with that. But yeah, they still continuing the communication. It's still an open sort of discussion for how will the end outcome really shape up between these 2 teams. So it's good to see neither of the teams really letting any sort of frustrations or anything seep into there. And well, for Scorpions, probably more than Panthers, on their own map pick, it felt a little bit shaky, I gotta say. Especially that attack shouldn't have slipped away as easy as it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit awkward, I guess, now for Panthers, because that was their map choice, so they ideally, again, don't want to really be going 1-for-1. I believe it was.
Could have sworn that it was that the graphic was saying that it was the Scorpions that picked the Sand River.
Okay, well, either way, whichever team picked it, don't want to go 1-for-1 in an ideal world, but we'll move back into it on that second map, and hopefully we'll see them run it back. Take a look at the fantasy points there again from Bales. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I expect from him. I mean, even when they lose, you know, he's farming up 4k damage, so you get your money's worth if you're picking him on your fantasy team today.
Is he on your fantasy team?
No.
Oh, sad.
Because he's a 5-star pick, and he hasn't really been playing like a 5-star pick, so...
That's true.
But
well, he was in this game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If I would have picked him, I'd have been pretty happy. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my roster so far today. See how we go.
Yeah, look, definitely been an interesting night already. I mean, even for mine, pretty sure. Yeah, I do have JT at least on this roster, although not the highest earning player right now from the second round. But look, yeah, look, for Scorpions, this is a good return to form. Going into Prokhorovka, I'm actually really curious how will they really be able to perform, because it's sort of one of those maps that I still think that they should be able to have good confidence on it, and they shouldn't really let Panthers slip away. But Panthers, the way how they've been playing recently, they could certainly still introduce a lot of punishment to Scorpions, I reckon. The moment Scorpions would slip up, even briefly, remembering even their games against the Wolverines, look, few of those punishments, and that's basically the round.
Well, I mean, I think this was, if we're talking about Prokhorovka, that was one of the maps that Scorpions really liked to go to last season. So 81% win rate on Prokhorovka. Last season, they played it 16 times. It was their most played and their highest win rate. So you got to look at that and say that's actually a pretty good conversion rate. You'd be expecting them to do pretty well here. It was also the go-to for Panthers, but obviously we know last season didn't go quite so well for the Panthers. So no roster changes for Scorpions, barely any roster changes for the Panthers. I think you've got a lot of data to pull from there that would say Scorpions are still favored to win the series from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Scorpions definitely posed to basically be the favorites of this matchup, although I'm still sort of keeping an eye out for Panthers, because obviously they are a much stronger unit now comparative to the last season's performance. They're certainly looking much more polished in terms of their execution. Yes, now Scorpions being sort of the big, I guess the big final boss for a number of those teams, could be the one team to sort of gauge as to how are the rest of the teams stacking against them, because honestly, I would be surprised if Scorpions don't make it to the land.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a shocking surprise. If both Scorpions and Sentinels didn't make it to the land, what kind of world are we living in? We're living in some kind of alternate reality. We've joined a different ANZPL than the one we've been casting for the last couple of years. But either way, Panthers and Scorpions going head-to-head once again are now on Prokhorovka. Well, and one apiece. Still anybody's game. But Scorps generally pretty good on this map. So let's see what they've got for us. It looks like it's going to be a very aggressive defense from the Panthers.
Ooh. Like it was on Sand River, they're looking to take the initial battle straight from the get-go. JS this time is the one to take the initial damage. Once again, though, JT just chucked down, sub 2k. My lord, okay, his HP just vanished. What?
Yeah, a lot of farming going on right now. The Panthers have set themselves up a really nice crossfire here, and it seems like the Scorpions are even kind of playing into it. Russian has driven forward. He's using that rock to his left as a bit of cover, but so far, not really working out too kindly for him, and Russian gets farmed. Absolutely deleted. JT over the top does have 2 shells loaded, and he's going to have to connect both of these. They go into crit. Aussie will be required to finish off both Mad and crit here. Benny to help out goes into the same position Russian just got farmed from. And Napalm is largely being ignored right now by the Panthers. So Scorpions, it looks like they've thrown a bit of a Hail Mary in here. Panthers have done the same, and Panthers will come out with the goods.
Wow. That
Unless JT can kill JS.
Rounds.
Surely not. He won't. No way. JS doesn't beat that.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, well, still finished by Still finished at the end by a napalm, but yeah.
It means napalm has to put the shot. Even if JT kills JS there, it's still pretty unwinnable for napalmer. So yeah, there you go.
Look, I gotta say this has to be one of the quickest rounds we've had for a long while. How long was that actually? I didn't get to count.
Well, it's definitely sub 2 minutes. I'll say it's probably about a minute and a half. Usually a minute and a half is about as fast as it gets in tanks. Maybe someone on the observer team can tell us.
Hopefully. But look, I mean, wow. Once again, Panthers turning sort of defense into what actually looked like more like an offense, really, with the way how they've played it out. And my lord, yeah, Scorpions definitely didn't look like they were prepared at all for that sort of turnaround. Now the Scorpions being sort of on that back foot. Not the ideal situation, especially going into the second round of Prokhorovka, but again, it's the defense. They were able to make defense actually look pretty convincing, and once again, it's Bales at the top of the leaderboard.
Dude,
my lord!
Why didn't I pick Bales, man?
The one day.
Well, this is actually the fourth day I haven't picked Bales because I haven't had him at all in my.
Or rather, the one time that we don't really pick him up, it's he's the one that's performing.
Yeah, I mean, he is actually not getting picked that much. He's only a 13% pick rate across the board, which if we go back like a couple of seasons ago, he was up at like 40-50% at one point as a 5-star pick. So you can kind of see where that sentiment has kind of shifted. But again, yeah, this week is definitely going to be changing that kind of a sentiment. Seems like all the pieces of the puzzle are really falling into place for the Panthers. Great little read. They catch off the Scorpions. Scorpions just roll into a crossfire, get hugely farmed. And there's not too much it seems they could do about it, right? Like they've, by and large, I still feel like traded about as effectively as they could have. Like, yeah, sure, Russian 66%, but I think he only ended up firing like 3 shells. So not really too much to write home about there. I mean, yeah, it's like they're penning their shots. They're hitting their shots for the most part. It's just that they're completely outpositioned. And yeah, they'll just get farmed. So what can you do?
Very much so.
AT bouncing 980, but not really much to get excited about.
Yeah, look, definitely a rough turnout really there for JT specifically. Once again, being the sort of their sole focus in the early stages, whether it was him on S-Conk or him on the VZ. Yeah, look, looking at 2K, and he was gone basically there. Just completely mercilessly finished off. And look, I gotta say, Bales as well on that crossfire has done absolutely phenomenally. The fact that he was borderline ignored for the majority of that round has been absolutely great to see.
Yeah, you can't be ignoring Bales in a CS63. I mean, you can't really ignore anyone in a CS63, but I don't know what it is about Bales. He seems to get himself in these positions where people just seem to forget about him. And then at the end of the round, you look and he's like, oh, he's got 4k damage and he's 4 HP. How did that happen? Don't know. But either way, Fox among the henhouse there for Scorpions, and they do not have an answer to it. So now they're going to have to go and move on to their defensive side of Prokhorovka and win that, forces through to a tiebreaker, and then win the series from there. Obviously, you know, at that point, you're still dropping a point to the Panthers, and that will give Action X first seed going into next week. If Panthers can win the series here, then they'll be equal first with Action X. So lots of interesting possibilities. Remember what we were talking about as well for the Sentinels. Like, if Scorpions goes down without getting a point in this series, and Sentinels goes on to beat Scorpions next week, gets the 3 points, then they would actually place 4th, and Scorpions would place 5th. Am I right?
Once again, another bizarre as well concept, Jordan. No matter how you look at it as well, the contention for the 5th and 4th place
like,
of all the time.
Crazy. It's just crazy. Nuts. Like that Scorpions could go from basically equal first to 5th place in the space of a week or 2 weeks, I guess, if things go the way that they potentially could. We'll have to wait and see. Aussie scouting run in the CS63 does spot out Madhouse and Critical. JT's in a 60 TP.
Ooh, okay. It's quite a drastic change from a VZ to a 60 TP as well. Completely deciding to shift towards a little bit more of a sort of chunkiness in terms of HP, but this turbo train on the 1-2 line is going to be rather deadly, because no matter how you put it, no matter how you look at it, yeah, they can collapse into the ball, and start pressuring JT. Though in the current position where both S-Kongs are, they could absolutely farm up whoever decides to actually collapse onto JT. So this is not ideal, and that is exactly proving the concept here, though I say that 900 HP, more than that already, just completely evaporating. Look at us again.
Yeah, JT's just desperately trying to keep his head down, but there's really nothing he can do when there's a crossfire like this established. Whichever way he turns, he's presenting the side of his turret to a tank, and they're going to go straight through it. Panthers have set the trap and made it work. And this could well be Panthers for a 3-1 tonight.
Absolutely just phenomenal turnout here. Bale's playing the bush game as well. Cool, calm, and collected the whole of the Panthers roster. And look, what a time to be alive, Jordan. And both of us predicted in favor of Scorpions, and look where we are, about to see a possibility of a 3-1 scoreline in favor of Panthers, the non-believers.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I've been a believer since last season, although I will say I didn't predict for them. But I've been hyping up Panthers since they built this roster last season, so I do feel a little bit vindicated when they play well, and they're looking pretty good tonight. So shots coming through onto JS, who is trying to sort of push the issue forward here, but I think at this point, if you're Panthers, you can just W key this. You've got the overmatch. It's just Russian and Napalm are there. Send the IS-7s first. In the end, it's actually going to be Bales and Madhouse head front, so maybe not perfect, but you do have such an advantage that it probably shouldn't matter. With that said, Panthers are bleeding a lot of HP right here, and Scorpions actually have the health advantage. So I wonder if there is a world where a 4v5 does get converted here for the Scorpions. It's kind of looking like it could be possible. Lots of shots not connecting here for Panthers. This could be bad.
Yeah, this could be absolutely bad. Look, we might have just talked a little bit too early here, Jordan. It certainly looks like, well,
it's going to ram.
Twit's going to ram. Yep,
that's
there
smart.
it is. There's the finisher. That's a good choice. Bales needs to stay alive here. Needs to dodge as many shots as he can. Yeah, the finisher. 3v3.
Crit versus Aussie in the 1v1. That could be huge as well. Who gets the next shot through? It's going to be Crit to beat Aussie. So, meanwhile, JS did go down, but Twit on fire.
Oh, no.
Twit's on fire. I think this is unwinnable for the Panthers now. I mean, Twit can't kill Benny with one shot unless he gets an insane high roll, which, I mean, he does high roll, but he doesn't get the killing blow, and Crit can't really help him out. So, that should be that. The Panthers, they just were a little bit too hesitant, maybe, in that push.
Well, remembering the original push, JS did get tracked originally, so that did give a little bit more of a buffer for the farming for Scorpions. But yeah, that return on investment has been phenomenal, I gotta say. It's from losing JT with basically all scot-free to forfeiting all of the HP to just that 1-2 line push up.
Well, that does look a bit silly.
Quite the turnout. Yeah.
Does look a little bit silly. Frit's going to run right into Napalmer, who might even just BM this and go for the ram kill. He's going to do it. He's going to try it.
He is.
There you go. Well, nice to see for the Scorpions, but the Panthers, I mean, Bales is shaking his head. Look at him. He's not happy, is he? He's probably like, guys, what the hell did we just do? We should not do this. That's my best Bales impression. Wasn't very good.
Look, you did manage to sort of get
not enough
almost
swearing.
the accent.
I felt like I couldn't get away. I've already said one swear word on the broadcast tonight, so I'm not going to get away with another one.
Yeah, probably we'll get a bit of a naughty from Ouija's as well. But look, overall, I gotta say, I don't want to call it a throw because you can't per se call it a throw, but that was quite a turnaround as well from Scorpions, from what was a extremely dire situation where they basically abandoned JT in full force, to having that turnaround where critical in the battle, him in an S-Conk in a battle against the CS, ended up nearly losing that as well.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I mean, look, that's just the power of the Scorpions, though, isn't it? That they can kind of bail themselves out of a situation like that. Like JT, I'm pretty sure JT got 0 damage done. Let's see. Oh, he got 826, so he got one shot through. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, he's done nothing. And, well, Bales also didn't really have a great game there. So it almost ends up looking like almost a 4v4. Crit has a massive game, 5.5k in the Super Kong. That's exactly what you want to be seeing. 93% accuracy, 100% pen rate. Oof. Those are some pretty sexy numbers. Also, 2k damage blocked from Crit. That's just, like, overall, an insane, like, massive damage. Great accuracy, awesome penetration, good damage blocked. Just what a stellar game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a phenomenal turnout. Yeah, 5k damage has been great despite the loss for Panthers. Yeah, this is a good gain, at least in terms of the fantasy points. So, look, love to see that, at least in terms of the personal performance. But yeah, look, Scorpions certainly doing a huge turnaround there for themselves, and now pushing us to the tiebreaker, I believe. Which, oh look, I'm looking forward to this. We didn't really have a whole lot of tiebreakers either this season, which is even more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game you'd want to see a tiebreaker in. Two teams that are toward the top of the standings, basically at the top of the standings going into this week. We've got lots of people tuning in tonight as well, so it's all coming together. This is going to be a really fun one. Tundra is the tiebreaker map as well, isn't it?
Yep, that's basically the one. Yeah, Tundra is the tiebreaker as well. But look, it's interesting to see how will Tundra really play out, because Tundra specifically has seen barely any sort of pick rate really. So it's first time in a while that we get to see it, and for a tiebreaker as well, only one round and all or nothing really for both Panthers and Scorpions. This could be good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite keen to see how we're going to see this one end up playing on out. But information coming through is Panthers will have the tiebreaker advantage because they got the most damage on attack on Prokhorovka. So let's wait and see what they're going to choose. Haven't been informed that yet. Apparently Tundra has not been played at all this season either. So yeah, that's going to be something new. I know Scorpions played a little bit of Tundra last season. I don't think it was a map that they really liked to go towards. I don't really recall for the Panthers. Don't really think we got to see it too much from the Panthers. So not too much to go off. This could really be anybody's game.
Yeah. As highlighted as well by the production as well, Tundra has not been played at all this season, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So that's going to be an exciting timeline as well. Look, Panthers have the tiebreaker advantage, so this could mean quite an interesting turnaround. Panthers get to choose their side. I wouldn't be surprised if it is another defense, and they will basically convert from the defense to offense on that round. So, but look, I'm keen to see how will that really turn out, especially on a map like Tundra.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit worried there if you're Panthers. I mean, you had every chance to close this series out right there. And now you could end up just walking away with 1 point. Significantly hurts your chances of going through to the LAN with a better standing in the playoffs. Obviously, your lock's going to come down to what happens next week. But yeah, if you would have won this game, you would have almost been a lock for at least a top 3. But now, who knows? Who knows? Scorpions as well are going to be wondering how they've sort of let this one slip. They're supposed to be alongside Sentinels, the big team, the big name team in the ANZPL. Back-to-back grand finalists. Panthers didn't even really do anything at all last season. Did they even make playoffs? I don't think they made playoffs last season. So now they're at a point
Panthers
of
didn't make it,
outplacing Scorpions in a regular season.
Yeah. Once again, it's been a bizarre season just in general, Jordan. From what was, look, a very dominating last season to now, just basically playoffs being anyone's game, really. But even with Panthers pulling a comeback that they've done, it's been great to see how they've really developed themselves. I mean, you're looking at AX, who were sort of on the brink of really bringing it over to that playoff spot, to that third place, if not the grand finals. as they fell off, I think, right on the semifinals. Look, this could be a great opportunity here for Panthers to really push it in tandem with AX to those higher positions in the playoffs to potentially even land. But for Scorpions, yeah, look, even just the pushing it to tiebreaker, they were going into this matchup. They wanted to get that full 3-pointer, which obviously now they have been denied already.
Yeah, I think both teams here feeling like they wanted to walk away with the 3 points, but hey, it can't happen every time. And to be fair, this is a matchup that you probably would say it's fair to see go through to the tiebreaker, right? These are two pretty evenly matched teams, at least in my opinion, right? If Panthers are playing to their peak level, which I mean, they didn't really do last season. But I definitely think they're a good enough team to kind of contest with Scorpions as far as the players they've got on their roster. So I'm happy to see them getting through the tiebreaker. Scorpions, obviously, one of the best teams in the ANZPL at this point, but being challenged a little bit. So it's good to see this one go through to a tiebreaker, in my opinion. But who walks away from this with that extra point? Who have you got? I mean, obviously, Panthers, we saw, got to choose the side. They chose defense. Does that factor into your prediction at all? Are you going to go the way of Panthers, or are you still sticking with Scorpions?
Look, I think I might actually still go for Panthers for this one because sort of so far, the moment Panthers are on defense, they can really do some absolutely nutty stuff. So I reckon they still might have the upper hand in this case specifically. Just the fact that I think they sort of found the number of Scorpions, at least for the most of it, bar what happened on Prokhorovka. But I think, yeah, they might have a really good idea and good grasp on what to do specifically on the defense where they can really dictate the general pace of it. Whereas Scorpions, they're also are looking to be quite good. So I'll probably still stick to Panthers, but it is very much of a 50-50 choice, I reckon, here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think I'll lean towards the Scorpions, but we won't have to wait too much longer to find out. I do find those Scorpions, we've seen a few times go into tiebreakers, and they've kind of struggled in those tiebreakers. So let's...
Do you reckon it's the endurance game?
Let's not count our chickens before they hatch. I mean, the weird thing is, if I recall rightly, Tundra was actually attacking sided, but everyone was pretty much picking defense when they got the choice. So it's almost like, I don't know, if Panthers, have they mind gamed themselves a little bit here and they've said, yeah, we want to go defense because everyone always picks defense. But actually, they've given the more favorable side to the Scorpions.
Yeah, look, there's definitely a possibility of them just sort of getting a little bit too deep into their own strats, into their own games. So certainly... looking to be a little bit more spicier, regardless of whether that is the case. Because I mean, we were talking with Blue Panda as well that you know, some of the maps, some of the sides that used to be sort of on completely the opposite side of the spectrum, where last season they were the losing sides, this time it's the winning side. So I'm going into this with sort of a fresh mindset. I'm expecting basically everything here and sort of taking it at a face value, because the way how the whole season so far, including the fact that it's only been singular round for each and every team to play against each other before the playoffs, also sort of has to be factored into all of this. And straight off the bat, an E5 is the choice already from Scorpions, which look, we've seen a few of them, but I'm not too sure what to really make of it. It still leaves me absolutely just confused every time I see that tank.
2 Super Conks and an E5, a lot of hold down potential there. They're on the attack, so they're probably going to be fighting from those ridges a little bit. Don't mind it. BZ55 out for Bales. It's a very heavy lineup, actually, for Panthers. They've got 5 heavy tanks. I mean, same can be said for Scorpions, I suppose. But this is one of those maps where you would have sometimes expected to see an SCB-1 or a CS63 getting tossed in. Both teams going relatively heavy. That's a nice shot in from Twit. And a good roll as well. He's really been rewarded for that.
Yeah. Just like you said before, you lose 100% of the shots you don't take. Twit exactly took that shot. That was really well organized. Interesting to see that sort of in the case of this specific matchup, for this specific sort of set of rotations, instead of what we usually grown accustomed to see, like a bat chat or a CS, this time it's a VZ. It's still sticking to all heavy lineup, which definitely feels a bit almost strange, really, on a map like Tundra. Like the position where Aussie is in a 5A out of all the tanks as well, feels rather strange. But I think this split specifically is just where the heavy tank meta really comes into the full swing of things, I reckon.
It definitely has. Definitely has. But you're right? When you see Aussie and Bales in a heavy tank, that kind of tells you something. I think because those two have been primarily medium tank players for the better part of a few seasons now. And in fact, far longer than that for Bales, obviously.
Yeah.
Kill, trying to send a shot in the direction of the Scorpions, not going to be successful. And he also gets pushed back a little. So JT's been able to push his way forward.
Yeah, although VZ not being the most agile tanks over some of the ridge lines, won't really be able to score any shots. Aussie, though, does able to get a shot in, so at least that shot-for-shot trade so far. Not too bad, but again, Panthers are looking to gear up for another one of those sort of rushes towards one of the players. JS being spotted is not ideal because in Napalm's position, the Eskong being quite the high accuracy tank, should still be able to at least deter one of the flanks, which should ease the pain for Aussie. But straight off the back of that, we do see already quite a fair few rotations starting to come through. Scorpions getting a good inkling about what could really happen and what could be the next move from Panthers.
Well, speeding around the place, aren't they, here, the Scorpions?
Getting some
JT
mileage.
and Russian on the move.
Cool to see that even with some of those heavier tanks, we do get to see some mobility here. But it is quite interesting that whilst, Panthers originally looked to try to pressure Aussie, the moment they realized that maybe they telegraphed it a little bit too much, this is where they sort of pull a bit of a swing around and go for the one flag, where Benny is currently all exposed, all alone.
And if they do go into the 2 flag, it's already very heavily defended by the Panthers, so kind of feels like they're walking into a trap if they do opt for that. Wit in the IS-7 has a really good crossfire angle. It'll be difficult to dig out. Aussie's already aware of that position, but beyond that, I'm not sure that there's too much really that the Scorpions are aware of. They did spot Critical earlier, but at this point he could be completely anywhere. They've lost all info on the northern side of the map.
Bit of a stalemate, really. The beautiful part for Panthers is they don't per se have to really do much. As long as they're keeping good coverage on both sides, they can collapse on either or. The beauty of the defense for Tundra is that both of the flags are in fairly decent reach between each other. So right now, well, for Scorpions, they need to decide as to where they go. 3 minutes remaining. Twit's position has to be basically lit, but that's the intention here from Panthers. This is the beautiful part where, he has to be basically shot at with the HE rounds because that's the only way to damage him. IS-7 in that spot is absolutely unkillable.
Well, you're not going to be able to do much with the HE rounds. Sure, you'll get 50 damage a shot, but that's going to take you a lot of time to break through. And another basically 1-for-0 trade as far as Aussie's concerned. So he's down to half HP. You do have that cap happening on the northern side. And so this is kind of the trump card for the Scorpions. They're really hoping that this is going to draw a bit of an awkward rotation. Maybe that they can catch Panthers in transition somewhere. But again, Twit is just going to slide another free shot through onto Aussie. So you've almost sacrificed a whole tank for nothing. And you're putting all the eggs in this northern basket. Scorpions are going to have to pull something pretty special off to win the game from here.
I think they just might be able to. Baiting that rotation in, they knew exactly. Yeah, Twit going to have a lot of problems already. Full collapse is coming around, and only now Panthers realizing the mistake that they've made, pulling away all of their forces.
He missed both of those shots. He fired them on the move, so Twit is still a little bit healthier than he otherwise ought to be. JT still on reload. Once that comes out, obviously Twit's going to start to suffer, but now we're getting cap pressure down south as well. And Benny from the northern side is going to be the linchpin, I suppose, in that super conk. Lots of damage can still come through from that. You got 50 seconds on the cap, 1 minute 25 for Scorpions to make this one work. It's still looking pretty dire for the attacking side, but maybe, just maybe, Scorpions can find a way with this crossfire they've established to kind of swindle something.
Well, with JT getting the first blood here, Aussie is the next one possibly on the guillotine, or in fact, there's actually a full-on collapse. JT should be the one to get finished off here. Madhouse, look at that. The sheer amount of HP that just dipped away from him. And yeah, look, I think Scorpions might actually still be able to itch away this this one round on Tundra, and well, they're the ones to cop the 2-pointer.
And he's got to kill Bales pretty quick, smart, because he needs to get into the rest of this fight. And somehow, I don't know how, but Bales has not been taking damage for like the last 30 seconds. So what's going on up there right now? It's playing Ring Around the Rosie right there on the house. But look, I gotta say, I don't know that Russian and Napalmer will be able to get the better of JS. Like, they're getting some good damage in there, but 26 seconds here. Can JS somehow find a way to survive? Gets over the top of this hill. Russian and Napalmer won't be able to get shots through. Benny coming around from the front. I think Scorpions have just about got it. But we'll see. If someone bounces a shot right here, that could be crucial. That could be a massive miss. 379 HP here for JS. One more shot will do it. Benny won't be needed. It'll be Napalmer with 3 seconds left on the timer to close it out for the Scorpions. And they're very happy with that, because that was very much down to the wire. And Panthers, oh dear, they'll be disappointed because they had the chance on Proc to get the win. 3 points on the board would have been theirs. They missed it, and now they've been punished.
Now they've been punished, but look, at least they still managed to come out of this with at least 1 point out of all of this, so it's not all for nothing. But yeah, you are correct. They, I would imagine for Panthers, they would be very much aware that that round on Prokhorovka could have been the deal breaker and would have basically sealed it all. But look, yeah, that's quite unfortunate for them that things turned out the way that they did. And look, for Scorpions, this is I gotta give them kudos. This comeback worked out just phenomenally.
Yeah, very well done in the end. Good resilience under pressure. I didn't really expect them to be able to get it done. They looked a little bit all over the place there on Tundra, didn't they? They were south and they were north and they were south, but they knew what they were doing. Or even if they didn't know what they were doing, maybe it was a world where we don't know what we're doing, therefore they don't know what we're doing. And so Panthers were even more confused. But in the end, yeah, look, Scorpions able to walk away with at least a victory tonight. Does keep them in the top 2. They will be second. They will be behind Action X. But overall, still keeping their head above water.
Very much so. Well done, well played by the Scorpions. Unfortunately, for Panthers, they do get one more week to, well, score for themselves. But wait, who do they have for the last week? Just to quickly check. Ah, yes, that will be Matildas, actually. So, okay, so that could be an interesting one. But yeah, look, this is shaping up to be a very exciting conclusion to the regular season, which look, I'm really looking forward to, because for Panthers, this there's still chances to still make it to the slightly higher seedings. For all majority of the teams, there's still plenty of opportunities. For Sentinels, they need to really start getting prepared to run the next season and the gauntlet, because playoffs are not shaping up to be too comfortable for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at this point, the Sentinels are probably going to be 5th place. They could potentially eke out a 4th if Panthers lose, don't get a single point, and then there's the head-to-head between Sentinels and Panthers, which I'm not sure which way that goes. But I mean, yeah, best case scenario for Sentinels, it's 4th place. Action X, I will say, it looks like they probably should be assured a 1st, because they're playing Wolverines next week. And Wolverines, well, they haven't beaten anybody. They've barely gotten any rounds off anybody. Action X should win that one. So Action X, if that's the case, would be guaranteed a place at LAN.
Yeah, look, we live in a very, very curious timeline, Jordan. And I'm quite excited, ecstatic for it to see what will be sort of the next few weeks. How will rather the regular season wrap up, and what will be the end standings for that, and after that, how will the playoffs? Because whilst look, first step is to obviously get the higher seedings going into the conclusion of the regular season, but the playoffs is where the actual the most important games are, the games for the land, the games for the big positions. And I think, maybe for Sentinels, this is where they will hit the afterburner. This is where maybe teams like Matildas will get finally that sort of the proper check for how well they're prepared for all of this and how much can they prepare. For Action X, this is also by far one of the best timelines really for them to get those higher positions to possibly make it to the LAN as well. And that could be, I think, one of the first few times that we would get to see AX to LAN.
Well, definitely the first time they would have been to LAN. And quite frankly, this is the best performance from an Action X roster ever in ANZPL, because they've always been a middle or bottom of the pack team. They've been lucky to get into playoffs in most seasons. And yet here they are sitting in first place, and going into next week, obviously there's still a potential chance they don't end up in first place, but definitely looks like they will based on who they're going to be playing against. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be quite interesting to sort of see how that ends up obviously playing out. But yeah, bearing in mind, obviously, first seed out of the regular season does qualify for LAN automatically. And then in that case, your minimum top two, because you're in the grand final, that is very interesting. That is, yeah, I mean, you lock yourself in for a top two spot in the season, which is just, yeah, unbelievable. I mean,
absolutely nuts.
Action X definitely not a team that I would have predicted to do that, because they've always been a bit of a tougher ask. But look, it seems like they've managed to put it together this season, so congrats to them. But hey, congrats to Russian as well, who we've got for the interview. Picks up the win tonight. Looking good, Russian. How are you feeling?
Oh, mate, I'm feeling fantastic at the moment, as you can tell.
Oh, yeah, I can absolutely tell.
You can hear it.
Now,
you can hear it.
Tell me, actually, because that Tundra looked a little bit messy, right? You guys were back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I had a theory that you guys actually had no idea what you were doing. And because you had no idea what you were doing, Panthers then also had no idea what you were doing. So
what do you mean,
anyway.
bro?
So tell me, was that the case, or did you guys come in with a really set plan that we're going to go north, bait them to go north, then we're going to go south and go south?
Yeah, that's 100% it, man. We knew exactly what we wanted. Like, we had it down to the minute details that we wanted them to beat us on proc and that sand game, so that we could get to Tundra and then just lay them out, you know?
Yeah, great.
Right.
Yeah. We know exactly what we're doing every single game. You've got no idea.
You're all over it.
That's it, yeah.
All over it, yeah. You got the time knowledge for the next few years almost, yeah?
Mate, I've got my life planned out already. It's crazy.
Mate. Look, in a little bit more serious sort of a note, now that we are very rapidly approaching the conclusion of the regular season, we already asked this question to Rowandy about sort of which teams sort of are looking to be one of the ones to make it to the LAN, since it's now going to be 3 teams to make it. He highlighted, obviously, AX, you guys, Scorpions, and possibly Panthers. To you, who are the other 2 teams that could possibly join you guys?
I mean, in my opinion, you can never really put Sentinels out of the question. They just seem to, pull these magic tricks out of their hat every season. So I'd say probably they'd be our biggest competitor, I'd say. Obviously, we've had a bit of a rivalry with them for a while. But yeah, Action X is looking pretty good. Honestly, the whole league's looking pretty good at the moment. It's pretty close. So who knows, really? It's what, two weeks left still?
1 week.
1 week.
1 regular week.
Whoa,
yeah, and then
boy.
Playoffs.
Yeah, righto. So who knows?
That was going to tie into my next question, which was like, is this going to be the season you guys finally win? It's like, you've been in the grand final a few times now. But if you say this is the most competitive it's been, it's kind of hard to say yes, right?
Yeah, and the worst part is that I'm thinking this is it for me. I'm thinking this is the last season. So I hope we win. We better win.
Surely.
Well, if you don't, maybe it's better if you don't win. Then you have to come back again and play another season.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, look, I tell you what, Russian. Hey, you got lots of preparing to do for next week. Big game for you, so I better let you go.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Hit those books.
Mate, I already know what I'm doing. Don't worry. I got planned out.
Glad to hear it. All right, thanks for your time.
See you, boys.
See you, mate. Yeah, big game next week. The Sentinels and the Scorpions. And if Scorpions win that one, I mean, they basically lock Sentinels into 5th place in the playoffs. What a massive gauntlet run that would actually end up having to be for the Sentinels to then make it to the grand final again, to defend their title.
Yeah, look, that would be one hell of a way to really bring it all back. Definitely could be quite curious to see how will that really all pan out. But look, yeah, apart from that, I'm just curious to see how, or rather, well, first of all, who will be able to lock in that first seed, and then from there on, how will the whole of the playoffs bracket will really evolve, because it's been, look, yeah, as Russian said, this has been one of the most competitive seasons for ANZPL, so I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, indeed. All right. We'll take a look at the results from today, Cthulhu, before we say goodnight and update you as to exactly how all of those matches did play out. Some surprising results. First series kind of went the way we thought it would. Second series, 4-0 from Action X. Really solid stuff against Sentinels. And then very tight finish between Scorpions and Panthers keeps things pretty interesting.
Yeah. Look, the Scorpions game definitely delivered, and it's been really cool to see how that whole thing evolved, how that whole matchup really happened, and look, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to see how the rest of it all go. Look, good to see that we finally tied up on the scoreline. If before I was the clown of the predictions, now we get to clown together, at least on the second place in terms of the predictions.
Yeah, well, look, didn't catch up to Wargaming, but if I would have chosen Action X, we would have been equal. Either way, guess not. Let's take a look at the overall standings and see where things are sitting at the moment. 9-8-8-7-4. So a bit of a drop off there for the Sentinels, but very, very close between the other four teams. And I mean, look, theoretically, there's a world where anyone could still take first place. But a lot of that kind of comes down to Action X actually losing to Wolverines, which I don't know.
Yeah, look, I mean, hey, Wolverines still get to play the spoiler, so I mean, it's definitely gonna be an interesting one to see if that actually comes to fruition. That would be the one and the only win for Wolverines in a regular season, which. I mean, knowing how so far some of the upsets went, I would be surprised. I'll be honest with you, Jordan.
Yeah. Very much still up in the air. From what I'm told, Matildas beats Scorpions on head-to-head. So Scorpions would want to get their 3-0 against the Sentinels, get those points on the board. And then who's Matildas playing against? Matildas must be playing Panthers. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I mean, look, there's a lot of possibilities next week. Matildas versus Panthers has very big implications as to where the middle of the pack is going to sit. Scorpions versus Sentinels also. And then, look, Action X are basically playing for their own destiny here. If they win that series, even if they get a point? No, not quite. They would need to win the series. If they win the series, they go directly to the finals. So this is this is a pretty exciting final week. I mean, I suppose this is kind of what you get when you only have a single round robin, right? Because there's just not that many opportunities for teams to really solidify their place on the ladder. Like, you have one bad week. This is what I was talking about in week 1. You have one bad week or a couple of bad weeks. It's like, all right, well, now I might not even make playoffs, or now I might not, be where I would expect to be. Like, who would have thought Scorpions could potentially be like 4th at the end of this season? But that is still kind of a reality, possibility at least.
Yeah, that's absolutely a reality. And look, I gotta say, this is by far one of the most exciting seasons, I reckon, given that we already got to see quite a dominating few seasons from Sentinels. Now we get to see potentially a new contender for that throne, and even just in terms of the format change as well, quite a substantial one, with now having 3 teams to LAN as well, just double the fun. So look, I'm excited for the playoffs. I'm excited for the last week of the regular season. It's all sort of coming together into a really nicely set up package for us to enjoy.
All right, well, let's take a look then at what's coming up for the B League. This will be on Monday, week 4 for B League. These are the matches: the Bulldogs and the Badgers, Archers and Centurions, and Hellcats and Leopards going head to head. So you know where to find that. Same place as ANZPL, just on Monday nights. So hope to see you there. And of course, the JPL as well. It's all popping off. World of Tanks Esports is on the rise. Amazing to see. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce these because I know you guys do a far better job of it than I do. So there you go. You guys can see what's on the screen. You can see the matches. That's coming up pretty much now, actually. So probably by the time we finish, in fact, it's already
just started,
probably
actually.
started. Yeah. So in about 5 minutes' time, you guys are going to be hearing us talk about that. You can go watch JPL if you want to go see some more World of Tanks, which is pretty cool. I mean, obviously Japan's a pretty solid region. I think we've got some pretty interesting teams in there as well, and quite a few experienced members over on that side of the fence too. So it'll be pretty cool one day, Cthulhu, to see whether or not maybe ANZ can play against JPL. That'd be my dream.
One day, yeah. Look, I'm absolutely also cherishing that dream in one shape or the other, and definitely would be keen to see, because I mean, with the teams like Kraken's really performing the way how they do, it's been an explosive season as well from Japan. Matter of fact, as well, after watching Japan PL and basically the alternative to our ANZBL as well, from Japan, they've been picking some of the more outrageous picks.
They
like if you
have a different meta, don't they?
Yeah. They completely live in a whole different universe at this point in terms of their meta, and every time I would tune in, it's just, what is even all of that? It's just absolutely nuts, and look, I'm all for it.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, that's going to be all from us for tonight. That's week 4 done and dusted. Next week, week 5, going to be the final week of the regular season here for ANZPL Split 1 2023. I'll be taking another break. Cthulhu, you'll be here. Blue Panda will be here. Going to be a massive week. Don't miss it, guys. Same time, same place. We'll see you there. Not me, but the other guys.